Class is in session. College football hitting the book show for Monday, September the 8th. Ian Cameron and Connor Mack with you, and it is week 3 of the college football season upon us. Back in our regular day of the week on Monday for our college football hitting the book show. Excited to be here and excited to report that after a truly dismal week 1, things were a lot better from a betting standpoint for yours truly in week 2. Much better. Still, we can do better, I think, than even we did last week, but to have a profitable week, put a plus units week on the board after, a rough week 1 was great. It was good to see that. Still got room for improvement, but hey, like I said, I'll take it. It was a step in the right direction, and hopefully we can keep that momentum building here as we go into week 3 of the college football season. So with that in mind, let's jump right into it. As always, we got a bunch of games. We'll begin with the one and only game coming up Thursday night this week. It's an ACC battle, the NC State Wolfpack and the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. NC State 7-point road favorites, 53.5 the total in this game. And like I said, much better week, but one of the unfortunate results, Virginia plus 3.5, guys. You're up by 10 at halftime. What happened? Well, the NC State offense happened. They had no answers at all in the second half for the Wolfpack offensively, just moving that football down the field without much resistance. CJ Bailey, man, I said before the East Carolina game, the first game of the season for them, there's potential he could be a pretty good quarterback for this team, and this offense could be pretty good. And, the early returns are promising, and it was certainly a great offensive showing in that 35-31 win over Virginia, that comeback win. You look at the CJ Bailey's numbers, 16 for 23, 200 yards. Very efficient, 1 touchdown, really relied on the run game, and it was certainly working with Hollywood Smothers, who had 140 rushing yards in that win for NC State after being, so you give them credit down at halftime, coming back and winning that game. Tony Elliott getting out coached. I can't say I'm shocked about that, but nevertheless, Virginia ends up falling in that one, and a great comeback for NC State. Wake Forest, meanwhile, you look at the first 2 games that they have played. It's definitely going to be their toughest opponent so far. They've played Western Carolina and Kennesaw in their first 2 games. And remember, the offense against Kennesaw State, they escaped with a 1-point victory, 10-9, and the offense just really wasn't all that effective. They couldn't run the football, actually, against Kennesaw State. Held to just 130 rushing yards on 47 attempts. That's certainly not good as far as getting the run game going. We'll see if that improves here. Obviously, they played Western Carolina last week. Things were a lot better. They were able to run the ball, 273 rushing yards, nice balanced attack, 269 through the air with Robbie Ashford, the Auburn transfer, as their quarterback. It's interesting. Wake Forest, we'll see how they fare offensively. NC State, we saw on defense, at least against Virginia, there's still some questions there. And that's the unit that didn't play great last year, and I had questions about them going into this game. Weather looks fine on Thursday night, so my initial lean early in the week is over this total. I'm not ready to lay 7 on the road with NC State. They had a nice comeback against Virginia. Let's not forget the defense didn't play great. They won because their offense just outscored the other team. It's not like NC State played a great defensive game. And when you're coming off a defensive game like that and you're being asked to lay 7 on the road, I'm not comfortable with that. That's really all there is to it. We'll see with Wake. The problem, because I lean Wake at +7 or better. But my concern is with Wake, you haven't played anybody yet. And you really struggled in that first game with Kennesaw State. And so that does bother me a little bit because this is by far the toughest opponent they faced. But my early week leans in a game that I haven't bet yet, but my early week leans are Wake and the over here. What do you think here, C-Mac, NC State, Wake Forest?
Yeah, I don't know if I bet this game here, at least from what I'm talking about right here on a Monday morning. You mentioned it. I think it's a little bit, they haven't played anybody. It's tough for me to trust Ashford as a quarterback. I just don't think he was very good. I mean, we've talked about him plenty of times at all. I like the defense looked better. They shut down the run, did Wake. I mean, they're playing Western Carolina. This is what the score should have been, right? So they had a few big runs and a few big pass plays. NC State, one thing, Virginia was even more balanced. Both those teams were balanced in that game. I mean, they both had over 200 yards passing and rushing, but I think Virginia got 257 on 32 carries. They passed for 257. So now they go on the road, even though still it's Wake, but still on the road. Their defense needs to be a little bit better. That's how I feel. I can't just right now lay 7 with NC State. I'm sure a lot of people are, though. After 2 wins, watch out. So I'll be looking at Wake here a little bit more as the week goes on.
Yeah, the NC State run defense was not good, and I think we're pretty convinced that when you're talking about Robbie Ashford as your quarterback, they don't want him throwing it 30, 40 times. No way. They want to have a run game that's going to work, and, NC State's run defense was not that great against Virginia, so if Wake can run the football, I think they could stay in this game and probably have success offensively. I think they can run the football here, and that's kind of why I think they can stay close.
Take care of the ball, though.
Take care of the ball.
Those are things I think that have to happen, but yeah.
And if they can, I think it's close. And like I said, if they can run the football, they can put up points. If they can't run the football, they can't put up points. That's kind of the way I feel about Wake's offense this year. So that's why I also think it's got a chance to go over. Plus, I don't know how good Wake's defense is. You played Kennesaw State, who's totally rebuilding, and Western Carolina. NC State's got a damn good offense. So I don't know if I trust that Wake defense. It's kind of why I think the over could be in play there. All right, let's go to Friday. We've got Colorado and Houston. Houston Cougars, 5.5-point home favorites, 43.5 the total here in this game. Houston Cougars off to a pretty good start this year against Stephen F. Austin, 27-0 shutout. One thing we know about Houston, we thought this year they could have a pretty good defense, and they've done nothing to deter that thought process so far. They've looked excellent on the defensive side of the football. They held Rice to just 9 points in a 35-9 victory. Connor Wegman, look, didn't play his best at A&M, had injuries, but talented guy, highly recruited quarterback. That's why he ended up going to a school like Texas A&M in the first place. Well, here with Houston, the early returns are promising. He's been solid. He's taken care of the football. He's been efficient. 15 for 22, 188 passing yards. He's got a run game that he can rely on. Dean Connors, this guy's fun to watch. Big bruising back here for this Houston team. 132 rushing yards. I think Dean Connors used to be with Rice, too, so that was a little bit of a revenge spot for him. Yes, transferred over to Houston from Rice, so I'm sure he enjoyed having a big performance against his old team running the football for Houston there in that game. And like I said, their defense was excellent. They held Rice to just 177 rushing yards on 53 carries. Like Rice is one of those teams that is skewed heavily to the run. And yet, even though they had very little success running the football, they kept hammering away at it. And Houston held up pretty well against the run in that game. Now, they got a good defense. And if they can just get solid play from Wegman, a little bit of a run game with Connors, that's going to be a good football, at least a competitive, tough out in the Big 12 this year, this Houston. And we don't have to say too much about Willie Fritz that we haven't said already. We love the guy as a coach. He's done an amazing job everywhere he's been. Brought Tulane out from the ashes, and look what he made that program into. And I think he's going to turn Houston around after it was left in a disaster, really, by Dana Holgerson at the end of his tenure. So I like this Houston team. They're a bet-on team for me. The question is, do I want to lay 5.5 in this spot? I still might. I mean, if you look at Colorado, they had the loss to Georgia Tech 27-20. The Delaware game, I mean, don't be fooled by it. That was a grind and a half for Colorado. And they gave up 312 yards through the air to Nick Minicucci, the Delaware quarterback, in that game. So they struggled in their secondary. Now, they were good against the run. Okay, they did stop the run pretty nicely. So that's a good sign for Colorado. The offensive line, it's still a work in progress to me. We know how bad it was last year, Colorado, along that offensive line. So trying to, protect for their quarterbacks is significant. Caden Salter, pretty efficient, but obviously they lifted him. Ryan Staub came in late in the game for Colorado to take over at the quarterback spot. Obviously, once that game got, lopsided. I think when you look at this situation here for Colorado, you're facing a pretty good defense, pretty good up front as well. This is a test for the Colorado offensive line, a unit that was obviously much maligned last year. Are you going to be able to hold up here? Because let's not forget, this is a Houston team that had 3 sacks last week. Constant pressure, really wreaking havoc in the backfield most of that game against Rice. Now, I get it. It's Rice. But Houston's defensive line has the prototype of a position group, a unit that can give Colorado some issues here in this game because of the questions we have about that O-line protecting here for the Buffaloes. So to me, this is a lean Houston and a lean under. So the problem is it's a low total, right? 43.5. But even with the tough, unfortunate beat that, and I'm sure C-Mac will mention it, with the under last week in that Houston-Rice game,
Yeah.
it was the right. But the point is, Connor, we're going to have those situations.
Yeah.
We're going to have bets where it was the clear right side. It was a good bet. It was the under was the right way to go. And unfortunately, you're going to have bad luck sometimes and a result go that way. But that doesn't stop me from thinking Houston's an under team. They're going to be methodical on offense. They've got a very good defense. Let's see this Colorado team and remember, we talked about this with Colorado. We think their defense would be a little bit better, and we knew they were going to play at a much slower pace this year as well. And so far they have as well. They've slowed the pace down a little bit. So I lean favorite and I lean under here. C-Mac, what do you think here? Colorado, Houston.
Yeah, it is. It makes you think because I almost took the Rice team total under, like we were talking in the back. It's tough when you get like 2 touchdowns type, 12.5. That's what it was. And look, they got 9. So, that cashed in the first half. But right in the fourth quarter, 14-3, I thought it was easy. But pick 6. Then Rice got their only touchdown. Then a 74-yard pass to Johnson for a tutty. And then they end it with like 3 minutes left to get it over. Connors bust one for about 45 yards. Touchdown. I was like, man, tough beat. But Houston played well, like I thought they would. Rice ran it, a ton. 53 times for 177 yards. That's what Houston's going to do. Problem I have here a little bit in this game is now Houston, there's a lot of love going around. Am I ready to back this team as good as I love them defensively, laying basically a touchdown here at home?
Yep.
I'm not so sure. And I don't know about Colorado. I got to see more. Like they hung around against Georgia Tech, opening out. And then the whole QB kind of dilemma that I guess is going to go on now. Who's going to play? I saw Salter a few days ago say, I played the first game sick, but I'm just a gamer. And I'm like, all right, buddy, we got it. Like, you were good enough to play. You played. So, and the Delaware game, I think, did they just cover that by the half point? I think the line was 23.5 or 24. It might have pushed.
It was right around the number. It's one of these deals where it depends on when and where you bet it.
Where you got it, yeah.
So the number flirted around 23.5, 24, 24.5. It landed on 24, 31.7. So really depends on when you bet it and where.
Delaware, like you mentioned, it was a lot kind of late, but yeah, they got a lot of passing yards, kind of junk yards late. Turnovers were a problem for them. I think they missed a field goal, Delaware. They should have had more points than the 7 in that game. So at Colorado, just a little bit of a different team on the road traditionally. So as of now, but hey, the under. That's all. I'll leave it at that.
Going back to last year, it's 5 straight unders now for Houston. So yeah, they have been a pretty heavy under team.
I think last year they went 9-2 or something like that. That crazy. There was a few overs.
Yeah.
And I lost 1 or 2, but for the most part they cashed. And
what was it about? Oh yeah. Colorado on the road, I do have questions. You're right about them.
Yeah.
As far as away from home. And let's be honest, they faced Georgia Tech and Delaware at home. Now you're going on the road for the first time. We'll see how they handle that. We're not always a great road team at times last year, but like I said, we'll see how this one plays out with the Buffs and the Cougars. All right, next up, Kansas State and Arizona. Arizona 1-point home favorites, 54.5 the total. This is also on Friday night. 0-3 against the spread to start the season, Kansas State. This is something's off here. Something's not right with Chris Kleiman's crew. This is not a team I'm excited to back right now, quite honestly. The Iowa State game was actually probably their best game of the year. Very good Iowa State team. And obviously they ended up losing that game. But boy, oh boy, these last 2 results are concerning, to say the least, alarming. You escape by the skin of your teeth as massive favorites against North Dakota 2 weeks ago. Now, granted, it was a tough scheduling spot coming off the Ireland trip and the Iowa State game. But it was a fucking tough scheduling spot for Iowa State, too. And Iowa State dummied the opponent they played. coming off that Ireland trip. And here's Kansas State just escaping barely against North Dakota and having issues on defense. And then last week against Army, and we know it's not the same Army team from last year. And the Army team that lost to Tarleton State at home in their very first game, outright as double-digit favorites. And here's Kansas State, 17-point favorites. This is the alarm bells game. Sound the alarm bells for K-State. To lose this game to Army 24-21, what is your foundation as an offense? Running the football. You couldn't. You absolutely couldn't run the football a lick against Army. 18 rushes for 74 yards on the ground. Now, I know they missed Dylan Edwards. There's no denying that. Like, he is that good of a running back. Not good, great at that running back spot. And he got injured early in the game against Iowa State in Ireland. He hasn't played since then. He's questionable for this game. But you should still run the football better than that against an Army team that's rebuilt in a lot of areas this year, and they couldn't do it. Like, that is why they lost this game. They couldn't run the football. And if they can't run the football, Avery Johnson's not the kind of guy that's going to carry this offense through the air with his arm. That's just not going to happen. He's not good enough as far as throwing the football consistently to do that. You can't be one-dimensional. Avery Johnson is not the quarterback that is going to take you to the promised land if you're a one-dimensional offense. And Army turned Kansas State into a one-dimensional offense Saturday because they had zero success running the football. Joe Jackson, 7 carries for 30 yards, and Devin Rice, 6 carries for 28 yards. Horrific as far as the run game, and it puts pressure on Avery Johnson, and he had mediocre numbers, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. You know, give all the credit in the world to Army, but and another thing, too, is that Army, 237 rushing yards. You know, I know it's, you know, a tough team to prepare for. Everyone all knows that. When
they dominated.
But they dominated.
Possession, everything, yeah.
Line of scrimmage is what wins and loses football games, especially wins and loses point spreads. You know, Kansas State got dummied in this game on both sides of the line of scrimmage by Army. There's real concerns right now. This is clearly a team that is not close to the projections many people had preseason as Big 12 favorites and, you know, one of the contenders. Hell, some people thought they could be a playoff team. It's an absolute fucking pipe dream now. I'm not backing Kansas State. It's just a question of, do I want to take Arizona? Because Arizona played this team last year in the Little Apple, and they got blown out. But boy, oh boy, this is looking like a different Kansas State team. And Arizona's offense with Fafita, now again, they've played Weber State and Hawaii. You have to take it with a grain of salt, but they've looked really good. He's throwing the football. They're having success, you know, running the football as well, decent amount. But Fafita in the passing game in particular has been very strong. You remember the Iowa State game in particular. Kansas State, you know, allowed 273 passing yards in that game, and not the greatest weather either. To Rocco Becht in Iowa State. And then they gave up 318 passing yards to Kaminsky, the quarterback for North Dakota, 2 weeks ago. Secondary's been ripped apart. Secondary, we said going into the first game against Iowa State, was the issue, the biggest concern we had for the Kansas State defense. So my thought is Fafita, with the way he's slinging the football, you know, can probably do some damage against that K-State secondary here in this game. I like Arizona here. It's the only side I could look at. I'm probably going to end up on Arizona if this stays close to Pick'em here in this game. I just think there's a little bit of an upward trajectory I'm seeing for Arizona. And I did think Arizona would be an improved football team this year. And for Kansas State, man, 0-3 against the spread, you know, you don't step in front of that kind of falling knife. You let them show you that they can step up before you put your money on them. That's my approach when it comes to Kansas State right now. So, like I said, Arizona, the only side I would consider endorsing here in this game. Could be an over because I don't like what I'm seeing out of this K-State defense. Their secondary's vulnerable, in my opinion, against Arizona. And I'll say this about Arizona's defense against K-State. K-State wants to run the football, and Arizona's run defense numbers look pretty good so far. They haven't faced a team that's going to run it, you know, to the extent and the quality that Kansas State will. And if you look at last year, Arizona did have big problems stopping the run. So part of me does think Kansas State, despite their issues in the trenches against Army in particular, that they might have Dylan Edwards back. Who knows? Their best running back. So keep an eye on that injury. That would certainly help the run game. But I have a feeling they're going to have a little bit more success. The Arizona run defense was bad last year. It's been good so far this year, but they haven't played anybody yet. So I think Kansas State can probably move the football better on the ground, and that will open things up, and that will lead to them scoring points. So over 54.5 would be the way I would go with the total here. C-Mac, what do you think? K-State, Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, they just dominated them. Ran the ball all over them. I mean, ran the ball for 40 minutes, did Army. K-State, too. Yep. Only one offensive touchdown. That other touchdown, the third, was a kick return.
More than double time of possession for Army. Absolutely.
Yeah,
40 to 19. Yep.
40 to 19. And Kansas State, all of a sudden, they could have run it last week. So, a team that's traditionally been better at home in Manhattan, where I want to fade on the road. And Johnson's played normally better at home, and he just hasn't looked very good. I think Arizona, they remember a little bit of last year, wouldn't you, man? If you were Noah Fafita, some of those guys. And they looked pretty good against another cupcake. And Weber State Fafita looked excellent. He threw for 5 touchdowns. His receivers looked good. So, yeah, I don't know how good Arizona is. They are at home. I think this game could be tight, but you're getting basically at a pick 'em here. So I'm leaning their way. I think Kansas State's going to play better, of course, as the year goes on, but you're hitting it. The defense is having some rough times to start the year. They've got to get it together. I don't know if this is the week that they're going to do it here. A short week.
All right, New Mexico and UCLA. This is the final game for Friday night. UCLA 15.5-point home favorites, 53 the total in this game. I mean, it was largely about 2.5 quarters of inept football from Nico Iamaleava and the UCLA offense on Saturday against UNLV, and then they finally put it into high gear fourth quarter, but they had dug themselves, too big of a deficit against UNLV. Tough beat if you had the over. And I know a bunch of us did, opportunities galore, settled maybe for a few too many field goals, but still, and then plus there was a pick 6 that was called off, and it was the right call because his knee was down before he let go of the football. Calandria. It would have been a colossal mistake, but that would have put the game over the total as well. But like I said, UCLA ends up just falling. Then they have the chance to tie the game late, and the interception ends it off the deflection. 30-23 win for UNLV in that game. 0-2 straight up and against the spread for UCLA. Even against New Mexico, I don't think I want to lay 15.5 points right now with UCLA. And I'll say this about New Mexico. They did go to Michigan first game of the year. 34.5-point dogs. They lost 34-17 in that game. Yes, they gave up 452 yards. They only gained 267, and they could not run the football against Michigan. But the fact that, they still covered that point spread, and their quarterback, Jack Lane, had 3 interceptions. Think about that. 3 interceptions on the road against, a Power 4 team, and you still managed to cover the point spread. I look at that as a positive for this New Mexico team. Now, Idaho State last week, it was a struggle for this New Mexico team. Certainly defensively, they had their issues at times with Idaho State, but Idaho State moved the ball against UNLV, if you remember, first game of the year. Maybe we should be giving Idaho State's offense a little praise and a little credit, because they moved the football against UNLV, took that game down to the wire, and they did the same against New Mexico last week. But New Mexico put up 32, ended up winning the game. They were able to have success running the football, 216 on the ground as a team, featuring most of all Scotry Humphrey, 141 rushing yards there for New Mexico. I just don't know if UCLA is doing anything right now well enough. Certainly not offensively, consistently. And defensively, Utah went up and down the field against them. Calandria spent much of that game, and UNLV spent much of that game going up and down the field against UCLA's defense. Maybe New Mexico can hang, getting 15.5. Like I said, we'll see if I get involved, but I would certainly much rather have the Lobos here plus than the Bruins minus these big points. C-Mac, what do you think here?
I mean, I think they're going to win this game. Cover the 16.5. I don't know. When I looked at this, though, a little bit early on, Give me the over. I know New Mexico's looked a little bit better defensively. I think Michigan could have put it on them bigger. And that game stayed at under, against Idaho State. But I think UCLA should have success. I mean, they can't get off to the start they did. You know what I mean? 3 points in the first half.
Yep.
And then come roaring back. You hit on everything that kind of happened late
Speaks
in
a
that
little
game.
bit to Deshaun Foster not having his team ready to go. Like these have been two, not just bad, horrendous first half performances, back-to-back games against UNLV and Utah.
Yeah, right away. So, I mean, they're like at the bottom. Like, I think there's only way just like to go up when you're at the bottom of the fucking ocean. So that seems like
Right.
UCLA.
Yeah.
So I think I can't take them. And I don't know how much to make in New Mexico, really. I mean, they kind of did what they do. They're not throwing it a ton last week. They ran it well. That was the one thing I talked about at the UCLA game, even though I think the game should have got over, was both these teams ran the ball, and I just thought the clock might tick a little bit. And the field goals, they got to be better. They got to score touchdowns. This will stay under. If UCLA is selling for fucking field goals, this definitely will stay under. Yep. And how much of New Mexico's team last year, Vanna, was a dead over? Remember?
They were.
I mean, they gave up a ton. So I just think this is light at the number we're getting. So over.
There you go. Over for CMAC. Now remember, that was Jason Beck and Devin Dampier last year with that New Mexico offense. That was a big part of why.
But their defense was just as good as he was, so that helped out. Their defense was horrid. Dead last in the country about every category. So they've looked a little bit better though, the first two games.
I'm going to do some on the fly capping here. I want to see their pace comparisons to last year, because last year they were a blistering breakneck pace.
Yeah, they went fast.
Tempo offense. I think this year, let me see, New Mexico. There we go. I love this.
The Michigan game got over.
Okay, last year they averaged 24.2 seconds per play. 24.2 seconds per play. This year so far, now again, small sample size, only a couple of games, but 25.1 seconds per play. So a little bit slower, almost a second per play slower this year. But still, I mean, that's not the drop off I thought it would be as far as pace for New Mexico on offense. 1 second per play slower so far from a tempo standpoint. So they're still playing at an above average tempo. I think slightly above average tempo right now. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, if I'm betting the total, I probably could only go over that number as well. All right, let's go to Saturday. We've got Oklahoma and Temple. Oklahoma Sooners, 24.5-point road favorites, 51.5 the total. Handicapping 101 says this is not the spot you want to be laying it with Oklahoma. You're coming off the big Michigan win at home Saturday night. Great performance by the Sooners. Their defense is something. They really have a defense this year, Oklahoma, and that is going to be something to watch. I've been very impressed with the Oklahoma Sooners on the defensive side of the ball. They won the trench battle big time against Michigan on Saturday night in that 24-13 victory. Bryce Underwood struggled, 9 for 24, 142 passing yards, sub 50% completions is never what you want to see from your quarterback. The run game, 146 rushing yards on 32 carries. It was a grind for them, to get things rolling consistently. Really, what's funny is Justice Haynes, to begin the second half, at that 75-yard touchdown run, they did squat on the ground offensively, running the football the rest of the game, Michigan. So don't be fooled by the numbers. 125 rushing yards. 75 came on that one touchdown run. He didn't really run the football well at all other than that. It was kind of like a breakdown Oklahoma had to let that happen coming out of halftime. And really, other than that, Michigan didn't do a whole lot running the football. So I am impressed with this Oklahoma defense. And I figured Michigan's offensive line, which, has, to me, a few issues, would struggle against it. The Oklahoma offensive line was the question for me, because I think Michigan's got a pretty good defense. They did all right. Mateer had 270 through the air.
I don't know about their defense so far. It's so early.
For who?
But
Oklahoma?
I think no, Michigan.
Oh, Michigan.
I mean, I thought they gave it up a little to New Mexico, which I was like, that's just week one. And I thought Mateer would run it And like you hit on here, these stats. I mean, threw for 270 and ran for 75 and a couple scores.
Yeah, he did, and he threw it. The secondary was not that great, in my opinion. Like once John Mateer broke contain a couple times and threw it on the bootlegs, I mean, they just didn't cover it well down the field at all, Michigan. That big throw he made on the run down to the sideline, beautiful throw, but poorly covered downfield by the secondary of the Wolverines. So, like I said, I think there's definitely some issue. I think their defense was, people thought this was a top 10 defense in the country, maybe Michigan. And I don't know if they're that. I think they're still pretty good, but they haven't played up to their, preseason expectations, in my opinion, a little bit. But nevertheless, Oklahoma's looked good. The question is going to be, how good is Temple? Temple played UMass and destroyed them. I think UMass pretty fucking terrible, though, because UMass turned around and who did they play? I think Bryant on the weekend, and they lost outright as 14.5-point favorites. So they're really bad. And it kind of takes some shine off that Temple victory over UMass. That UMass turns around and they lose as double-digit chalk last week to Bryant. So it really doesn't make that Temple win look as good. But they did dummy UMass 42-10, just as small favorites, and then they beat Howard 55-7. So really haven't played anybody. They got absolutely eviscerated last year and only put up 197 total yards of offense against Oklahoma, 51-3 beat down for Oklahoma last year against Temple. But there's a lot of changes, obviously. Temple's got a better coach. I know that, with Casey Keeler. 100%. And the quarterback, last year was Forrest Brock for this Temple team. And obviously now you've got Evan Simon, who's at the controls of this offense this year. And Evan Simon so far, I mean, now again, tomato can opposition, I get it. But 27 of 35, 77% completions, 422 through the air, 9 touchdowns, no interceptions. Pretty good numbers. I think it's a much better Temple team. I do. And I think, I think highly of the coach hire that they made. All you have to do is look at the pathetic disgrace and disaster that Sam Houston already is in 3 games with Phil Longo to recognize how good a coach Casey Keeler is, and how good a hire it was by Temple to get him. So I don't know. Part of me wants to take a shot here. Temple plus the points. Maybe Temple first half and then Oklahoma wakes up and drills them. But it's not exactly the best spot in the world for the Sooners this week, coming off that big primetime ABC home win against Michigan. The question is, Temple just might be totally up against it from an in-the-trenches standpoint. Like, Oklahoma really could bully them here on both sides of the football. It could be that's the one concern, but spot-wise, yeah, it's not an Oklahoma spot. I'm interested in Temple. It's just, do I have enough confidence to pull that trigger on it? What do you think here, C-Mac? Oklahoma, Temple.
Yeah, this is just the shit spot. I mean, it's just, you got to get it out. We see it. We did year in and year out. A huge win at home. I mean, not that they couldn't go in there and win here by 30, but if you like Temple, I think maybe early that Oklahoma could be flat. I'm impressed with the defense. Against
Auburn next week, back in SEC play. Actually, it's their SEC opener.
This is very
Auburn. Dubious
sleepy
spot. Very.
Yeah. I love how the defense has looked so far with Oklahoma, and I don't know what to make of Temple in those 2 wins. Like, I don't think Simon's very good. QB, they were blowing him out. Even McCoy came in, looked all right. Because it's tempting. It's under the 2 touchdowns. It's right there. Temple's team total is 13.5. I don't know if they scored 2 touchdowns in this game. Unless they're asleep here at the wheel. So I was looking at Temple's team total under in this game because I don't know if they get anything done, really. And Mateer, I just think, he looked a lot better. Used his legs in that game. And that was in the Michigan game. I wanted to stay off. I kind of leaned Michigan. I didn't love it. With 5, I had to stay off. But I kind of leaned the under, too. It was low total. I mean, Michigan scores, it basically pushes, right? That game was a 44.
Yeah.
So it was tight that way. But I was looking at the under in that one. So, yeah, I'm looking at team total under here for Temple.
One thing I'll say I'm looking back at that 51-3 Oklahoma win. I got to get my calculator out. I'll do the calculator on. They had 220 rushing yards, but it was 36 attempts. I remember that game a little bit. They did have some difficulty, believe it or not, on their offensive line and running the football. We'll see. No, actually, they did pretty good. 6.1. Actually, yeah, 6.1 yards per carry. Yeah, they did pretty well. in that game running the football. Yeah, that would be the concern, right? Is Temple going to be able to match up in the trenches?
Could they stop them?
Spot-wise, it says Temple, but I am worried about Temple in the trenches here. About that, that's the concern for me with taking the 24.5. All right. Next up, Oregon, Northwestern. We've got Oregon 27.5-point road favorites. The total here sitting at looks like 51 across the board in this game. This is a spot preseason I had circled to take Northwestern for sure. For sure. I thought Northwestern was going to be a lot better. I thought Oregon, they've got some issues. They're down. They lost a lot from last year. Didn't think their defense was great. Didn't trust Dante Moore, the new starting quarterback. Didn't know if they had the speed on the perimeter and the run game that they've had in the past. Oh, they look like they've got it. Oh, my goodness. Maybe.
Yeah. Both these teams fucking suck, though. Oklahoma State, 2 home games, too.
That's true.
So I know there's a lot of hype right now. I thought Oregon would go in there and blow them out, and they did early.
And I couldn't help but I couldn't help but notice that Kirk Herbstreit during the Michigan-Oklahoma game said, "Oh, nobody's talking about Eugene, and that team in Oregon and how well they've played." Well, you're talking about them now, Kirk. So there you go.
Yeah.
After what they've done, but you're right. Montana State and Oklahoma State is so bad right now.
They didn't come to play.
An FCS team. They look like an FCS right now.
Yes.
And a bad FCS team. Like that is how much Mike Gundy's team has fallen. From the end of last year, it was a pathetic disgrace to end the season. They were awful, and they look like they might be even worse this year. I mean, their defense, it was like automatic touchdown every time Oregon took the football on offense.
Video game.
Flores was pathetic. They had no offense, no run game. Now, Dante Moore's been great, no question. But, like I said, at home, 2 disastrous opponents you had to play. Easy, Cupcake City, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions, and 77% completion rate here so far. He's been awesome. But at some point, you got to see him against some better competition. Here's the problem, is Northwestern better competition? Because for all the accolades they got bringing in SMU transfer quarterback Preston Stone. Preston Stone, before he got injured at SMU, was struggling a bit and didn't play great. But I thought, you know what? He's healthy now. He's with a new program. Got an opportunity here. I think we can get back to the Preston Stone that was when we first saw him. And he was not just bad. He was horrible. I can't stress it enough how terrible he was. The whole offense, I was shocked by it. And look, I took Northwestern in that game, and that's part of my miserable first week. It was awful to see how terrible and pathetic that offense was. 3 points, and Tulane's got a good defense and great coach in Summerall. I get that, but my God, 4 interceptions, no touchdowns, 19 for 36 he was in that game, throwing the football. You can't do worse than that if you're Preston Stone. And if you don't move the football a lick in this game against Oregon could probably win by 4 touchdowns. You can't bring 0 offense to the table against a quick strike team like Oregon and expect to cover this number. But how good is Oregon? You played Montana State and you played a complete disaster team right now in Oklahoma State at home. And now you're making this first road trip, Midwest road trip. And we'll talk about this with another Big Ten team later in the show, making their first Midwest road trip of the season and how bad they were in those spots last year. I'm not talking about Northwestern. I'm talking about another Big Ten team we'll get to later. But first significant travel of the season for Oregon. Maybe buying low on Northwestern because they looked so awful in that game against Tulane. They did bounce back last week, but again, who did you play? You played Western Illinois, the Leathernecks, 42-7. And I can vouch for the fact that Western Illinois' defense is not good because I remember they played Illinois in the first game or something, and they got ripped apart on defense.
Good name.
Yeah, the Leathernecks.
Not a good football.
Not a good football team. So don't make too much of that 42-7 win for Northwestern. I want to take Northwestern in this spot. I had this spot circled preseason. I thought Oregon would be down. I thought Northwestern would be improved. And this is one of the spots on Northwestern's schedule. I said I'm taking all those points with them when they're a home dog against Oregon. And now I'm getting cold feet. But I still lean Northwestern. C-Mac, what do you think?
I know this is a ton of points. I think it's trusting Stone and Northwestern at home. I know that first game against Tulane.
The defense did hang in there, C-Mac, against Tulane. Defense wasn't terrible in that game. They hung in there as long as they could.
They hung in there. You're right. They were, but like Retzlaff, I mean, he had 10 carries for 113 and a touchdown. I know he had a big run, but what they
all
run
that
for?
speed. How are they going to handle all that speed?
269.
Yeah.
A lot of speed, quarterback and run, all the playmakers out there. That's why I was like, man, they could still get burned, but this is a lot of points at home. I think it comes out like, can Stone score here? Like, can they get two, 3 scores? Like that might be able to cover the number. I don't know if this offense is good enough. I just don't know with Stone. I saw that whole game from the book. Watching that the first game against Tulane, man, that was ugly watch for sure. So I know this is a bunch of points. I mean, I have nothing. I have nothing right now.
No,
I mean, no bullshitting here for me.
Look at how perception can change after just 2 games. Like we thought, well, Oregon not going to be quite the same team. Didn't have much faith in Dante Moore, and the offense has been nothing short of spectacular. Like you cannot not be impressed with Oregon's offense so far.
For sure. I think it's another game, though, where they look good against a bad offense, though. I don't know if this defense, I hype that defense a lot. Like when it comes down to it, this is all regular season until the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think when they play the top couple teams, the offenses, that defense is going to get exposed.
Yeah.
But for who they are, they're good enough.
I was so put off by Northwestern's performance against Tulane, especially on offense, that now in a spot where I thought for sure I'd be on Northwestern plus the points here in this spot against Oregon, now I got to think twice about it. So that's where we're at. Stay tuned later.
And what do you think about, Stone, his head? I mean, how he was kind of falling off, and then you see him play. I mean, last week was fine, but do you have the trust in Stone?
That's the thing. I mean, it was fine last week against Western Illinois. Can't stop a nosebleed on offense, on defense. So, like I said, I got to see more of that for sure. But I do lean Northwestern. I do. But like I said, I'm on the fence if I get involved. All right, next up, we've got Buffalo and Kent State. Buffalo, 21.5-point road favorites, 48.5 the total. I only brought up this game and put it in the list of games because it was one of the first bets I made this week. I laid the big number with Buffalo. Kent State's that pathetic. They are that horrific of a football team right now. I mean, Merrimack, that was a escape by the skin of their teeth. Merrimack's not even a phenomenal FCS team by any stretch of the imagination. And then now, granted, A&M's Texas Tech's pretty good, but Kent State last week, I mean, it was just ugly. I mean, it was just, it was just basically scoring at will. Texas Tech, it ended 62-14 in that game. Of course, like I said, they barely beat Merrimack 21-17 in the first game of the season. And let's also not forget that last year these teams played in Buffalo late in the year. Buffalo beat them 43-7, 37-point win. 36-point win, I should say, for Buffalo last year against this Kent State team. Like, they're that bad. You fade them at every reasonable price. And I'm high on Buffalo. And this is kind of A plus B equals C handicapping for me. I cashed a ticket with Buffalo in the first game of the season against Minnesota. They were 17-point dogs. They lost 23-10. Pretty solid effort on the road against a capable Big Ten team. And then Minnesota turns around, and what did they score? 66 points last week, Minnesota? Against Northwestern State. Yeah, 66-0. Minnesota won that game handily, destroyed them. And then, of course, Buffalo beats up St. Francis, Pennsylvania, 45-6, covers the number there. I like Taquan Roberson. This is obviously a beyond bad Kent State defense. Buffalo should be able to have success both ways here, throwing the football and running the football. Roberson, the great running back, Al-J. Henderson, should be able to have success because this Kent State defense can't, again, the ground game, they get shredded through the air, they get shredded on the ground. Doesn't matter. You can do whatever the hell you want pretty much against this Kent State defense. They've given up 197 rushing yards per game. They've given up 273.5 passing yards per game. They are giving up a whopping 6.4 yards per play on defense. So this gets ugly in my opinion. Again, Buffalo beat them by 36 last year. What's to stop them from beating Kent State by at least 24, 27, 28 here? So I laid the big number with Buffalo. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Buffalo wins here. When I looked at it, I kind of just think they cover the number, but I think when I looked at the team total, it was under 35. It's 34.5. I think it might be just safer just because this is a road game. Look, towards the end of last year and already Buffalo has looked good. And this is a team that's dating back to last year. How many games have they won against the number? 7 of 8 or 6 of 7?
Yeah, they're on a nice
5
point
straight
streak. Yep, you're right about that.
Yeah, they're on a nice run.
Yep.
Well, not only their team total, like I think this game could get over. It's just Kent State's
50
got to
points
score.
last year, 43-7 last year.
I think he could slip over. Look, Texas Tech. By the way, if you have 48 in the hook, you cover with Kent State. They lost by 48. So 62-14 that game. So I think Buffalo, 35, they get there. So I'd look to their team total, and maybe this full game gets over.
All right, next up, we've got Central Michigan and Michigan. Little in-state battle here. Michigan, 27.5-point home favorites, 42.5 the total in this game. Now, look, Michigan's got some concerns, in my opinion. Bryce Underwood struggled last week. Other than a big busted run that Justice Haynes had to begin the third quarter, they didn't run the football well against Oklahoma. We saw how sloppy and mistake-prone and issues they had against New Mexico. Their very first game of the season. They didn't play a crisp, clean, solid brand of football there in that 34-17 win against New Mexico. They lose, obviously, against Oklahoma on Saturday. Now they welcome in Central Michigan. They go back on the road in Big Ten play at Nebraska next week after this. Central Michigan, now, they lost 45-17 to Pitt. Before that, they went out to San Jose State. They won outright as 14-point dogs, 16-14. Obviously, they struggled with Pitt. And, Pitt got that pass game going. Eli Holstein, 304 passing yards through the air. They were very solid, though, Central Michigan, against the run in that game against Pittsburgh, though. All the damage Pitt did was pretty much through the air with the passing game from Eli Holstein. I continue to think Matt Drinkle was a great hire from Army to be the head coach. I like the effort this team's given. And I'm giving Central Michigan a bit of a pass for that game kind of falling apart for them in the fourth quarter. That game was actually 31-17, Pittsburgh, going into the fourth quarter. Central Michigan's got a chance to cover that game. And I think they got worn down. And, let's also factor in the spot, too, C-Mac, because we talked about this with the Central Michigan Pitt preview on last week's show, that Central Michigan played at San Jose State on the road, gritty, gutsy win, pulled it out late. They had to travel back to the East Coast, play Pitt last week, tough scheduling spot, tough travel spot, and I think they just ran out of gas. They hit a wall in that fourth quarter against Pitt, but they were hanging with Pitt, for 3 quarters in that game. Now you're going to get up for a big brother, if you will, an in-state rival like this against Michigan, a Michigan team that has shown me enough flaws through 2 games that I'm not ready to lay almost 4 fucking touchdowns with them. I can tell you that. So I'm very intrigued by Central and the points here, plus 27.5. I like the culture. I'm seeing toughness. I'm seeing accountability. I'm seeing energy being brought in, because there was no energy with Central Michigan once McElwain toward the end of his tenure there. It felt like the team lost, the program had lost all its juice, and they needed it back. And Matt Drinkle, to me, has given them that juice back. They've held their own in the trenches, and if they, again, unless Bryce Underwood is going to throw for 300, 400 yards here against this, and maybe that's the issue with Central Michigan.
He might. They're bad.
He might.
Yeah.
But in the trenches against the run, they've held up reasonably well in the first 2 games, Central Michigan, against San Jose State and Pitt. So, and I've seen enough issues with Michigan that I actually lean to the big dog here, Central Michigan, 27.5, to at least keep this one inside this big number. C-Mac, what do you think here, Central Michigan versus Michigan?
Yeah, it's tempting, I think, with the 4 touchdowns right around here at 28. There's some spots. I think the game's a little bit like last week against Pitt. I think this is going to kind of be like 45-17, 45-14. The one thing with San is the mistakes in that first spot were the picks. Central Michigan ran the ball well. I thought the defense, but they did give up 300 yards through the air, and that was the problem against Pitt.
This might be Bryce Underwood over pass. I'm not big on the college football player props, but this might be Bryce Underwood over passing yards because I'm looking at the run defense numbers. They've been very good for Central. It's their secondary that's getting torched.
Secondary's getting torched. Yeah. And Michigan seems like a good bounce back after kind of not doing anything. I mean, he wasn't great against Oklahoma. I mean, we talked about how their defense 9 for 24 for $142.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, this is before they, like you said, they play Nebraska, right? At Nebraska.
Nebraska on the road. Yep. Next week. Yep.
Yeah, Nebraska. Yeah, it's kind of like a feel-good game, pad the stats. But, yeah, I'm not laying it with Michigan. I mean, I kind of agree with you. I would take Central or nothing.
All right, next up, we've got Clemson and Georgia Tech. Clemson 4-point road favorites, 52, the total in this game. I would do anything to get a copy, video or audio, or both, of just what the hell Dabo Swinney said to his team at halftime against Troy last week, because I'm sure he was ripping paint off the walls. There's no words to describe how pathetic that first half was for Clemson against Troy. I couldn't believe what I was watching, quite honestly. Like, I've never heard Death Valley that silent. Like, there was silence in that first half. Like, you couldn't believe it. Goose Crowder and the Troy offense is going up and down the field against Clemson. They couldn't stop them. Cade Klubnik's throwing interceptions at his own goal line, pick sixes. I mean, you couldn't believe what you were watching last week. And everyone was thinking Clemson's going to be this big-time team this year, by far best team in the ACC this year. And look, they haven't played a conference game yet, so obviously they can still, have a great season, win the conference, because both of their games so far have been non-conference, LSU and Troy. See, something was said. I think Dabo Swinney probably lost his mind at halftime, because they did come out and they looked like Clemson again in the second half, and they turned the game around after just a pathetic, brutal first half. And they got the job done 27-16. They didn't even get close, though, to the point spread. 30.5-point favorites. They only ended up winning 27-16 in that game. And like I said, Goose Crowder threw for 223 passing yards. The 3 interceptions really hurt in that game. Like I said, Klubnik wasn't great. Less than 200 passing yards at home versus Troy. That's concerning. They miss Antonio Williams. These other receivers aren't.
Yeah, the receivers.
It's really that simple. Like, where are the weapons? Where are the targets? Where are the guys that are stepping up to help Klubnik in this passing game? That's certainly of concern. The run game eventually, got going for Clemson, but still 120 rushing yards for the entire game at home against Troy. What happened to this great offensive line we were talking about for Clemson? And, it's been, underwhelming early returns for this Clemson team. Now they're playing, after LSU, this is going to be their next toughest game, going on the road against Georgia Tech. There's a reason I think Georgia Tech's taking the early money. This opened 6, it's down to 4. They might be live here, because I don't know. That was not a performance that's given me a boatload of confidence for Clemson against Troy. Now Georgia Tech. Now I actually give Georgia Tech a shit ton of credit for the Colorado win, because of all the turnovers they committed in that game, and somehow they were able to overcome it. They won 27-20. Haynes King had an interception. They fumbled the football twice in that game as well. I think they were -3 in turnovers on the road at Colorado, and they overcame it, and they still won that game. I actually give them a little upgrade for that.
But that's rare.
Yeah.
Usually you lose in those, but yeah.
Yeah, normally you're -3 in turnovers. Your chances of winning the game and covering the number go way down. And I think we definitely saw, but to overcome it and win that game was a great effort by Haynes King and that Georgia Tech team. Their defense was pretty good. Obviously, they blew out a overmatched Gardner-Webb team last week, 59-12. I think they might be live with what I've seen from Clemson. Second half of the LSU game, and then all of last week or Saturday against Troy. This is not going to be an easy game on the road for Clemson, and I've got mounting concerns what I'm seeing so far from them. So this is Georgia Tech or nothing for me. C-Mac, what do you think? Clemson, Georgia Tech.
Yeah, it was a pretty rough watch, especially after the loss And then that first half, I was
They
thinking
were
of all.
There were boo birds in that stadium for Clemson
Oh,
in that
fuck.
first half.
There should have, because I heard all this hype from all these Clemson people that this is the best roster, that this is the best team in 3 or 4 years, yada, yada, yada. And who knows? Maybe at the end of the year, they'll look a lot better. But yeah, that early on, they did not come to play. I'm sure, yeah, the halftime speech was pretty wild. And they came out and took care of business like they should have. But Georgia Tech here at home, as a dog,
Dabble gave him a
I'm
come to
interested.
Jesus halftime speech, and apparently it worked.
Dude, he's nuts. I'm sure he's going wild. There, when I look back at this, because I just wanted to touch this because I vividly remember this game, but it was at Clemson, of course, 2 years ago. Both these quarterbacks were in. King is one thing with him. He has had turnover problems. You talked about it in the Colorado game. That even though he's a tough kid, I like him a lot. But fumbles and interceptions.
You may not overcome -3 turnover margin in this game against Clemson. Yeah, that is a good point.
Yeah,
valid point. Yeah,
but I think it just until they're just not right now. Clemson doesn't look very good. I think Georgia Tech's live. Clemson too. I just wanted to hit on this. Other than that game, it was 42-21. Talked about at Clemson though, 2023. Clemson just beat the shit out of Georgia Tech year in and year out for like 10 years. When I was going back through the numbers this morning, I'm like, damn. So that's just another thing. And how good the Georgia Tech offensive line and is their defense. Georgia Tech at home, I think they'll play all right here. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's Tech or nothing right now.
All right, Wisconsin and Alabama. Remember, this is a back-to-back years they played each other. One of these non-conference home-and-home series deals. They played in Madison. Now they're playing down in Tuscaloosa. We've got Alabama 20.5 point home favorites, 46.5 the total. Well, they needed to curb stomp somebody after that Florida State game, and I actually think Monroe is I like the coach there. I think he's done a nice job there. And I don't want to say I'm overly impressed, but I'm somewhat impressed that Alabama was able to beat them by that kind of margin, 73-0. Like Monroe's not like they're not the Monroe of like 3-4 years ago where this wouldn't be impressive.
They look like it on Saturday.
They did. And they were, and you could tell Kalen DeBoer and that whole team was out for redemption. And they got it. Their defense was stifling. 9 first downs is all Monroe had. 93 rushing yards, 55 passing yards. I mean, the defense that had their pride wounded big time. But the way they played against Florida State and Tommy Castellanos, boy, they certainly made up for it. I don't know if I'm ready to lay 20.5, though. I'll be honest. I mean, let's see here against Wisconsin, a Wisconsin team that I don't know what to make of Wisconsin. I think they might have a pretty good defense. I'll say that because they shut out Miami, Ohio. Middle Tennessee, they only gave up 10 points in that game, although Middle Tennessee was moving the ball a bit through the air with Vadiato, and then they made mistakes and turnovers, and they kind of, bogged down in Wisconsin territory a few times. The offense is a work in progress, though. It still is for this Wisconsin team. I mean, the fact that Danny O'Neal, who I never was that impressed with at San Diego State last year, is their quarterback this year, that's concerning to me, especially going into a tough environment here like Bryant-Denny Stadium there in Tuscaloosa. So the run game, now that's the one thing, right? They have committed big time to running the football this year, Wisconsin, and being a, ground and pound, getting back to the old ways of the Badgers. They abandoned that up-tempo, throw it more offense that they had under Longo. They got Jeff Grimes back here as the OC. Will they be able to run the football? If they can run the football and consistently move the chains here against Alabama's defense, they could hang in this game. And Alabama's given up 161.5 rushing yards per game, 106th in the country run defense. I'd still need to see more out of Bama to lay 20.5. Now, I know they dominated Wisconsin last year. Kalen DeBoer's first year at Wisconsin, it was 42-10.
What was it?
42-10 at Wisconsin in favor of Alabama. And I was on Alabama in that game. 407-290 in total yards. You're laying a bigger number now. Actually, I lean Badgers a little bit. I do. I lean Badgers a little bit because that run defense. Look, obviously last week against Monroe didn't do anything running the football, but Florida State, a 2-10 team last year, went bonkers running the football against Alabama. 230 rushing
Bingo.
yards.
If they can run it, they could be in it.
They could
I think
keep the chains
because they don't have an outfit. Yeah,
fewer
they can't throw it.
possessions. They're going to move at a very slow pace because Wisconsin's back to run heavy, slow pace on offense. That suddenly, if they can have success and just move the chains and keep possession of the football, that makes 20.5 not the easiest number to climb over if you're Alabama in this game. So I'm leaning to the Badgers here, but it's not with the utmost of confidence. C-Mac, what do you think here?
Yeah, I kind of I don't know what to make of it. It's like a classic week 3. Like, what's going to happen here? Because I don't trust Wisconsin really on the road and their quarterback. You know, O'Neal looked pretty good against Middle Tennessee, I guess, last week. But I don't really trust them at Bama. And then Bama bounces back. They're here at home again. And I got to see more of the defense. We'll see what DeBoer. I mean, he's catching a lot of heat after that loss, after what happened last year. And look, it was going to be no after Nick Saban, like he would have to win. Like that's just it. If anything else, it's a failure. And a lot of people are talking about him. But I still think he's a pretty good football coach. It's just sometimes when you go to Alabama, it's a little bit different than where he was at Washington, places like that. Just saying, the heat is real. So yeah, I'm off this game. The total is low. Wisconsin's getting on. If you were talking, if they run the ball, they could maybe be in it. And I don't know. Obviously, they haven't seen an offense. They haven't seen a team like Bama in these 2 games. So, I'm off.
I just don't know how good these backs are. They've had some great running backs in the past, Wisconsin. I'm just not sold yet how good Dylan Jones and Darian Dupree are for them. But like I said, we did see Alabama's run defense get gutted a little bit by Florida State, and that's the recipe for Wisconsin staying inside the number, is if they have similar success pounding the rock here in this game. All right, next up we've got South Alabama and Auburn. Auburn 25-point home favorites, 53.5 being the total. In this game, South Alabama, boy, oh boy, what an effort by them against a pretty good Tulane Green Wave team last week. Gave Tulane really everything they could handle pretty much in that game last week. So impressive stuff from them. We'll see if they can, carry that over here to this particular game this week against Auburn. Auburn, through their first 2 games, we saw them beat Baylor 38-24, 42-3 over Ball State. So far, so good for Jackson Arnold. It's looked pretty solid. No complaints at all. They've run the football too. Jeremiah Cobb, so far, so good. Like I said, Hugh Freeze's team looks very solid so far. No question about that. Spot-wise, though, 2 big wins, playing a feisty South Alabama team that lost 33-31 against Tulane last week. But they were able to move the football. Like I said, South Alabama had that. Like Tulane's got a pretty good defense. South Alabama was able to put up, 421 yards. Bishop Davenport, 2 touchdowns. They had success, through the air. As far as the run game is concerned, 190 rushing yards for South Alabama against what's supposed to be a pretty solid, run defense for Tulane. They were able to run it at least a bit, throw it on Tulane. Auburn's offenses look good. This could get over the total. That's my first thought on this game, 53 and a half. That's where my lean is right now. I don't know if I trust South Alabama to stop Auburn. Otherwise, I'd take South Alabama in this spot, plus the points. And I still lean that way because Auburn's got, this game after, with the big game against in SEC play against Oklahoma coming up next week on the road. So I kind of want to take plus 25 with South Alabama. But I don't know if I like this. South Alabama defense is down from where it's been in the past, and we saw that against Tulane. They really struggled And I think they're probably going to struggle, especially with the way he's played so far. Look, there's nothing to complain about with Jackson Arnold. I wasn't sold he'd be great, but so far he's played really, really well here for Auburn. So I could see Auburn moving the ball. I think South Alabama can contribute points. This to me is a lot like the Arkansas State-Arkansas game last week, where I loved the over in that game. And I said Arkansas is going to put up a lot of points, but Arkansas State can put up enough to get it over the total. That's the way I feel here. Auburn will put up a lot of points, but South Alabama will move it enough as well to put it over the total. C-Mac, what do you think?
That's how I felt. Both teams are going to run it. Just saw that with UNLV we were talking about, because I think this goes over as well, that it's a little low. I mean, and I don't make anything, like they didn't cover. Ball State got a field goal in that game, at least full game. But they should be able to run it here at home on South Alabama. But I think South Alabama could have some success against them. You know what? I got to have Baylor's defense is horrible. Ball State's defense is horrible. And he's at home again here. But I don't trust Jackson. This is his best spot because I'm ready to fade him on the road like you can't believe. And maybe he just keeps proving it to me. Then I'll keep coming back on this show.
Well, you better believe I have Oklahoma circled next week. I do.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Come on now.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, it seems like another win, but I think South Alabama could put enough points. I lean their way with the 25, and I do think it can get over in this game. It's just the running a little bit. They should. I mean, what did Tulane have? 250 on South Alabama last week? They were down 14-0. Quick.
Yeah. 241 on
Tulane
the ground
was.
for Tulane. Yeah, running
Okay,
the football.
241.
Yeah, Tulane ran the football very well against South Alabama. And remember, with Hugh Freeze, it's a run-first spread offense. They want to run. They want to be heavy on the run. So they should be able to. Like I said, I think we get points there in that one. All right, Georgia, Tennessee. We've got Georgia 3.5-point road favorites. 50 the total. It's one of the big matchups coming up on Saturday in SEC action. Look at all the money coming in on Tennessee. People buying this Joey Aguilar Kool-Aid here with the Tennessee Volunteers through the first two games. Now, I'll admit, I didn't expect him to be this good, this impressive. Now, you played Syracuse, who's got problems. We saw that. Now they beat UConn, but Frank
They
Brown
came back,
putting his team through the fucking sprints after the game last week, even though they came back and won. That was hysterical. They should have lost that game, let's be honest, against UConn.
Yeah.
But they stole it at the end. So that's not overly impressive win for Tennessee in the first game of the season. And then obviously last week they played and also ran East Tennessee State, and they did whatever they wanted. Now you're going up against Georgia. And look at all this love for Tennessee here. 6 down to 3.5. I'm just going to bide my time and be patient and wait and wait and wait. And if this falls to 3 by Saturday, I'm going to take Georgia. I just trust Georgia.
I agree.
More. I just trust Georgia more. They've owned Tennessee. What have they won? 7 straight in the series, 8 straight against Tennessee head-to-head. Last year, 31-17 Georgia in Athens. They've had no problem going to Knoxville and winning either. 38-10 at Tennessee 2 years ago. 41-17 at Tennessee 2021. 43-14 at Tennessee in 2019. I mean, Georgia's won and covered 4 straight here in Knoxville at Neyland Stadium. They've had no issues going into Tennessee and beating this team. I think people are getting carried away with this Tennessee love because they beat a flawed Syracuse team and because they beat East Tennessee State. Now, I know Georgia's played Marshall's, not nothing to write home about, and Austin Peay. And they're 0-2 against the spread. But the fact remains, Kirby Smart's never been great as bigger favorite. He's never been good in that kind of a point spread role.
Austin Peay was a little bit like,
concerning. I get it. Yeah, 28-6. It was kind of lethargic. They were only up 3 at halftime. Yeah, Gunnar Stockton was pretty solid. It was concerning was that the run game was not really going against a team like that you would have expected from Georgia. 190 rushing yards, you would have expected a little bit better than that. Yeah. I'm not buying Tennessee just yet. And Kirby Smart has handed it to Josh Heupel in this matchup from a coaching standpoint over and over again. Like this isn't just that Georgia's won 8 straight against Tennessee. Like these have been blowouts, most of them. Look at these scores, like 31-17, 38-10, 27-13, 41-17, 44-21, 40. Like none of these games have even been competitive. Georgia's blown them out repeatedly. So, like I said, at the opener, I was not involved. I had no interest in Georgia at 6. 3.5 now, and I'm seeing it might even go to 3. Now I'm getting interested in taking Georgia. I still think they're the better team, better coach. C-Mac, what do you think?
I think that's it in the end, and that's why they continually beat them. Is they just get outplayed, outclassed, outcoached consistently. Does Tennessee? I mean, is this the team after 2 weeks? Syracuse, East Tennessee, like with Aguilar.
Joey Aguilar, who's a mistake-prone quarterback.
Well, that's I think a little bit of the
last year with App State. Do we all of a sudden trust him to make no mistakes against this Georgia defense? I don't.
Yeah, and from what I've seen, Syracuse went up and down on them. And they could have had score there late, didn't cover, blah, blah, blah. They could have had more points. I know Georgia's offense hasn't looked crazy good, but I think they can do all right here. Yeah, even going into Tennessee, it hasn't been a spot that's been trouble for them. I think Stockton's – he is who he is. I think he's a solid college quarterback. We'll see a little bit the rest of this year. But I think this game could get over. Can Tennessee score a little bit? They're playing at this pace. Is Georgia's defense that for real? Maybe it slips over. I wanted to look at the total a little bit more. But, yeah, this is coming down. A lot of Tennessee love. I'll buy it right now. I mean, that's just for now. Show it. Prove it.
Yep.
I saw it last year. They had a guy named Nico, and they won 5 straight games to open up 70-0. What happened when they played somebody?
They fell on their face is what happened most times.
Yep.
There you go. Yeah. This is getting into playable.
So they gotta show it to me.
Yeah, this is getting into playable range for me now with Georgia, especially if it hits -3. All right, next up, we've got Pitt and West Virginia. We've got Pitt -6, 6-point road favorites, 57.5 the total in this game. But people are really starting to jump off the Rich Rod bandwagon here, and it's hard to blame them after what I saw. And I was the beneficiary. I cashed a ticket with Ohio last week as a home dog against West Virginia, won outright.
Yes.
Yep. Look, people just every year they say it. Well, Ohio, this, Ohio, that. They lost obviously Auburn to Charlotte, new coach and all that. Thought they'd take a step back. Ohio's a solid outfit. They just, it's just going to be, and they're going to be in the mix again to win the MAC, especially when you got a defense that's better than people think. And Parker Navarro's been pretty solid, very good at quarterback for them so far. But West Virginia, they lose that game to Ohio 17-10. Obviously, they beat Robert Morris the first week, but that's not saying much. But people know there's issues with West Virginia. Rich Rod's trying to install this new offense. They couldn't run the football at all. They couldn't run the football at all against Ohio. They were dominated in the trench, and Ohio just ran it down West Virginia's throat most of that game. Like in the trenches, West Virginia, that's not a fraudulent loss to Ohio. They deserved to lose. They were just beaten in the trenches, both sides of the ball. They couldn't run the football, and they couldn't stop Ohio from running the football last week. So there's real problems here for West Virginia.
Real quick, man, they did get dominated. That's another one I wanted to mention, the turnover, though, because Navarro had 3 picks.
And the turnover
they couldn't do it.
Yep.
They could. That was a strange, because when I was looking at it, I was like, there's Navarro with his picks, but they dominated the line of scrimmage, because we've talked about him enough with that, and we will continue to, I'm sure. But it didn't matter. They won that game flat out.
That's another situation like Georgia Tech against Colorado, the first game. Somehow Ohio, overcomes a minus turnover margin and still is able to win. That shows you just how much they dominated.
Time possession. Line scrimmage
on both sides of the ball. That's a concern. I mean, I've got that. That was one of those, and I'm happy because I thought Ohio could compete in that game and maybe win it, but I didn't see the trench dominance to that extent happening for Ohio, and that's got me concerned now about West Virginia. This could be a bad football team. This just very well might be a bad. And Nico Marchiol, this guy, not good.
Yeah.
15 for 178 passing yards for West Virginia, 1 interception, no touchdowns. I mean, people reacting to it, I don't blame them. I mean, they didn't look good at all. The question is, this is the backyard brawl. It's a rivalry game, Pitt, West Virginia. You want to lay 6 on the road in a spot like this, I guess is the question. But I think I would take Pitt before I take West Virginia. Their offenses look good. Holstein, of course, they've got that up-tempo offense, and the thing is, too, with West Virginia, like their defense struggled big time in that game. The one thing I will say is Pittsburgh is definitely a pass-heavy team. And West Virginia, a lot of their struggles against Ohio was stopping the run. How will they hold up against the pass here is going to be the big question here in this matchup, because you look at this West Virginia team, the run defense has been pretty abysmal so far. The pass defense we'll see, because the one thing about Pitt is they don't run the football like they used to. In this new offense, and it was Kerwin Bell's kid who brought this offense to Pittsburgh last year. It's a pass-heavy offense, up-tempo, faster pace, and very much emphasizing throwing the football. So it's not like this is the unit that Ohio scorched last week. They scorched the run defense of West Virginia. How will they deal with the Cade Bell pass-heavy offense here that Pittsburgh's going to bring to the table? But, yeah, that was horrible for West Virginia. I don't want him. It's just, do I want to lay 6 with Pittsburgh in this game? Pitt team total over, possibly. If I had faith in the West Virginia offense at all. Here's the thing that's the X factor for me. I don't know how good the Pitt defense is just yet. They played Duquesne and they played Central Michigan, and there were times Central Michigan was moving the ball, against Pittsburgh in that football game as well. So could this be a spot for West Virginia's offense to improve? Maybe, but it's just so alarming that you only put up 10 points against Ohio. And what was the total yard? Like, it was a horrible offensive game. They had 250 yards for the entire game. That's it. 250 yards for the entire game and 10 points. It was a punt fest for them. So that's why, with the total being 57.5, I think Pitt's an over team. Is West Virginia going to help me out enough? That's the question. C-Mac, what do you think here? Backyard brawl.
Yeah, I mean, you hope Pitt scores enough points to get that, because I don't think you want to lay 6 here in this game with Pitt. I just don't think you want him. In the history of these teams, no. Give me West Virginia here off the loss. I think they're going to play a lot better.
Buying low on them, because that was a shit show and a half against Ohio.
Oh,
certainly buying low.
Horrible. If they can't get up for this, though, this is the big, between these two teams. So yeah, I think they're going to play better. I don't think they're a very good football team right now.
West Virginia has won and covered 3 in a row at home, hosting Pittsburgh, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet you Pitt's probably won and covered at Pitt, right? Yep.
Well, last year at Pitt,
pretty much
8-34. It was a unbelievable football game, and it was a game that was stolen by Pitt at the end, because they were losing and Pitt came back and won it.
Yeah, West Virginia's got to do this. This is a long week of practice, I'm sure. So I think a lot of people are going to love Pittsburgh. Yeah, give me West Virginia here.
There you go. Going against the flow. All right, next up, Oregon State and Texas Tech. Texas Tech, 24-point home favorite, 60.5 the total in this game. Oregon State is a team that's, I got to admit, it's disappointed me. I thought a better team. I like Trent Bray as the head coach here, but yeah, it's not been a good first couple games here for this Oregon State team. Obviously, they got run over by Cal in their first game, but Fresno State, again, the defense has just been non-existent here for this Oregon State team. They give up 34 in the college debut. And look, he's a good young freshman quarterback. JKS, as I call him, Jaron Kiawe Sagapolutele for Cal. He's going to be a pretty good quarterback, but he sliced and diced that Oregon State defense in the first game. Last week against Fresno, E.J. Warner, 128 passing yards, but it was really the run game that really did its damage against Oregon State, 197 rushing yards. The problem, too, Malik Murphy, turnovers that cost him in that game. 2 interceptions that he had for Oregon State at quarterback in that one. And one of them was a pick six at the end that put the game away. It's not Not what I expected out of Oregon State. They have not been as good as I thought they would be. And now you got to go on the road and face a Texas Tech team that is very capable of blowing the doors off anybody, as they showed last week against Kent State. Well, Oregon State is not Kent State bad, but you know what I mean. I still think there's some concerns I have for Oregon State with a defense that's struggling against a Texas Tech team that has scored 129 points in their first 2 games. This is over for me, 60.5. I think it gets there. You look at Texas. Texas Tech, by the way, is on a perfect 6-0 run to the over in their last 6 games going back to last year. That offense is humming right now for the Red Raiders. It's Baron Morton's healthy, and I don't think I've seen him now. He's faced weak competition, but I still have not seen him play better. Adam Hill running the ball has been great. They got multiple weapons at receiver, and look at how Oregon State's defense has been sliced by Fresno and by Cal. Okay. And both of those games for Oregon State came at home. Now you got to go to Lubbock against this rolling like a well-oiled machine Texas Tech offense. I don't see how Oregon State gets many stops in this game. It's just a question of, does Malik Murphy and the Oregon State offense do enough to help you over the total? And we did see late in the game last week against Kent State, Texas Tech did give up some points and scores very late in the game against Kent State. So if this becomes garbage time, that's when you could see Oregon State punch in some points. So, yeah, I think over is the best way to go here. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it could maybe get there. I got to talk this Fresno Oregon State game. I stayed off the game in the end, but they had a punt return, and he talked about the pick 6 because Oregon State dominated that game. They doubled the first downs. They had like 585 yards to 318.
They did put up yards, Oregon State. Like, they moved the football.
Oh, yeah.
With Fresno. Big time.
They missed a field goal. They had the couple picks like you talked about, the big ones, the punt return and then the pick 6 were huge. That's just losing the game. And then, time possession, 37 minutes to 22 for Fresno State. Yeah, tough times right now for Oregon State. One thing with Texas Tech here at home is, this is where I want to back them. They've played nobody here, weeks 1 and 2, blowouts. How's the defense? Because with this team in the past, I could not lay the defense with points like this. This is an automatic look the other way. Now, are they for real? Oregon State's struggling so bad. I think they still have Murphy and enough players here that they could stay within this number. I know there's a lot of Texas Tech.
On the road, Texas Tech, Big 12 opener.
Yeah, a lot of Texas Tech love. I'm looking at Oregon State here. And, I agree with you. I think it could get over here, the total.
It's one of these deals where Kent State is so bad. I'd love to know what the record is throughout the season. You bet against the team that just whipped on Kent State in the next game. Like, when you play Kent State the previous game, you bet against them in the next game because you're overvalued from beating on one of the worst teams going in college football right now, Kent State. Maybe that's the case here for Texas. Maybe they're overvalued a little bit after just whooping on such a horrific team.
I kind of think so, but also we know this with Texas Tech. 8-1 the last 9 over.
Yeah,
over team.
Oh, the over to me is the best bet here in this game rather than the side.
I think it's low enough right here at 59, 60.
Yeah. All right. Next up, as we continue along here, we've got USC and Purdue. USC 21 point road favorites, 58 the total in this game. I mean, there's not many offenses through 2 games that have looked better than Jaden Maiava and this USC offense. Holy shit, they have been phenomenal. There's no denying that whatsoever. I've been impressed with what I've seen through the air. And look, maybe we should have seen this coming because he played very well in the bowl game for USC last year, Maiava, that he could use that as a springboard into this year. But boy, oh boy, this Lincoln Riley, Jaden Maiava at quarterback led USC Trojans offense has been, they've been unstoppable. I mean, 73 points against Missouri State, 59 points against Georgia Southern last week. The numbers are just absolutely off the chart, spectacular right now for Jaden Maiava. They're having success doing, really whatever they want right now. They've been running the football very well, 309 on the ground against Georgia Southern. Jamarian Samuel, O.J. Arnold, And of course they've got great receivers, or actually, Wayman Jordan, King Miller, great running backs, and of course 2 great receivers in Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane for USC as well. They're excellent. Their offense is damn good, and we saw Maiava roll obviously in the bowl game. That's a damn good USC offense right now, no question about that. But there is always a but. Missouri State and Georgia Southern. Well, Missouri State actually bounced back. I kind of like that Missouri State team. I thought they were that was a great side last week for Missouri State against Marshall. I thought, what's Marshall doing laying more than a touchdown? Totally rebuilt football.
Yeah.
And Missouri State ended up beating them outright. So Missouri State, that's what makes that 73 points very impressive from USC against them, because they only gave up 20 points to Marshall last week, Missouri State. So that offense is for real. No doubt. So for me, totals wise, I could only look over this total. I think there's going to probably be a good chance for points here in this game against Purdue. Purdue defense has faced Ball State so far this season, and of course last week it was Southern Illinois. So I don't want to make too much of them shutting out Ball State and only giving up.
I agree.
Southern Illinois. They're facing a totally different offense right now with Maiava playing the way he is right now. No question about that. I do like the Purdue offense, though. Ryan Brown has played pretty good. He was here last year. And don't forget, Purdue's offense took a step. There was an uptick. There was definitely an upward trajectory in the offense when Ryan Brown took over at quarterback last year with Purdue. And this year, I'm not saying he's a great quarterback, but he's competent. They've got Devin Mockabee running the ball for them. It's a couple of receivers. They've had some success moving this football. Again, they haven't played anybody to the caliber of USC, but you start to look too at the USC defense. Danton Lynn did a great job last year, big turnaround for them on that side of the football. But through 2 games, I've got concerns. Missouri State had moved the football. The secondary, as Andrew G says in the chat, is still a concern. And Georgia Southern was able to move the football. J.C. French and Georgia Southern, they scored a touchdown right off the hop. Georgia Southern went right down the field and scored against USC's defense. So there's still a couple of things that bother me about the USC defense. Nothing bothers me about their offense. They've been absolutely great. So I think the over could get there in this game. Here's the concern with buying into laying 21, though, with USC in this game. Go look at Lincoln Riley and USC. And this was the team I was talking about earlier, that they were just a disaster every time they went to the Midwest or to the East Coast for road trips last year, USC. In their first year in the Big Ten with Lincoln Riley and for USC, for this program in the Big Ten, here's what they did last year when they went on a road trip in the Big Ten. They went to Michigan. They lost outright as favorites. They went to Minnesota. They lost outright as favorites. They went to Maryland, okay? A Maryland team that really wasn't any fucking good last year. And they lost outright as favorites. That's 0-3 straight up and against the spread. Not just against the spread, straight up. 0-3 as favorites. Last year, USC, when going on the road in Big Ten play to either the Midwest or the East Coast. Michigan, at Maryland, at Minnesota. They lost all 3 of those games as favorites. That's got me leaning Purdue here, even with how dominant and amazing the offenses look for the Trojans so far. That is a very clear track record that Lincoln Riley and this team has had major problems going on the road and making these long travel spots in Big Ten play. And Purdue, look, it's against very weak competition so far, but I think there's already been a culture change, a culture shift, some positive momentum, some positive energy with Barry Odom taking over here as head coach. I'm actually leaning Boilers here at 3 touchdowns as home underdogs. CMAC, that's just a bad track record. That's all there is to it. 0-3 last year as favorites. Outright losses on the Big Ten road at Minnesota, Maryland, and Michigan for this USC team. That's why I don't want to lay this many with them in this game. CMAC, what do you think?
No way. No way. I'm on Purdue here. Give me Barry Odom here as a 3 touchdown dog. I think there's a long way to go on both sides of the ball, but SC's talented. Odom too. I think he knows Jaden Maiava a little bit as well back at UNLV. So I think Purdue will be prepared here. It's hard to not say this game goes over too. I agree. How is there not some points? here. These defenses play all of a sudden really, really good. I'm sure the weather's fine this time of year too, right? Double to 84 degrees. Yeah. So, Purdue, take the 3 touchdowns, and I like the over. I agree.
All right, let me just take a look at the early week forecast here. Yeah, with USC and Purdue. I think it's going to be pretty solid for this game as of now. Yeah, no rain, light wind. It's supposed to be perfect in West Lafayette, Indiana.
They win, but I don't know. I don't think they win by 3 touchdowns. Maybe they do.
Yeah. Again, go look at it. They made 3 Midwest or East Coast Big Ten.
They were bad
games last year. They lost all 3 outright as favorites: Michigan, Minnesota, Maryland. Michigan was good, not great. Minnesota was mediocre, and Maryland was a bad football team, and they lost that game still.
Yes,
outright as favorites, USC.
And nothing against Lincoln Riley. I think he's a solid football coach, but I'd rather have Barry Odom in a game like this.
I don't disagree. He did a great job with UNLV.
As a dog.
I already think he's done nice work here, just beating the shit out of teams. Like, if they've struggled with bad teams, that's one thing.
Yes.
They pounded the piss out of these 2 teams. So, like I said, I think there's a new energy here with Barry Odom here with this program. All right, SMU, Missouri State. We've got SMU 27.5-point road favorites, 61 the total. Is probably another overlean for me. I mean, these are 2 offenses I trust more than the defenses, but I think I could make a case to take Missouri State here with all these points. I like their quarterback. I've said this from day one, Jacob Clark. I think he's a good quarterback. I know it was Marshall rebuilding team, but to win outright as dogs gives them certainly some positives. This is their home opener, by the way. They've been on the road the first 2 weeks at USC, at Marshall. So I think there's going to be a nice little environment. First home game as an FBS member, by the way, Missouri State. So I think you got to put a little extra check mark beside this maybe being a bigger home spot than it otherwise would be here for Missouri State. And we saw it with SMU defense. I know Baylor can be very good on offense, but when Baylor got it going and threw that football, and that's the thing, Jacob Clark can throw it. There's a good passing game here with Missouri State, and the SMU is not bad against the run, but my gosh, Sawyer Robertson and the Baylor passing attack shredded them as that game went along in the passing game, that SMU defense. And that's kind of the strength of Missouri State's offense. So this is a lean over, and in this spot, you know, I know it's coming off the tough overtime loss that maybe they're not going to take Missouri State lightly because they lost in overtime to Baylor last week. But at this many points, I'm leaning Bears here. First home game as an FBS member, Conference USA, fired up, good environment, good atmosphere. I know SMU's got bigger games coming up than this one. Maybe an element of, hey, we get up with a big lead, just get the game over with and move on with our season. So I lean Missouri State here. SMU in this spot, in this number, no, I'm not trustworthy of them. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, like, can Clark throw it here? Because, you know, SC, we talked about them. I don't think they have a very good defense, and they were getting pounded, but he only had $147 in that game. I just like that it's kind of the first game here at home. Like, just pumped for it with the team that I think their offenses are right. They're still bad defensively. I think SMU is going to get what they want in this game. But 4 touchdowns, I don't know. This is a tough bounce back spot for after a tough loss to Baylor, you know, in that game. It was back and forth. Oh, how many OTs was it? 4? 5?
Yeah, it was. I think it was. Yeah, 2 overtimes because they stopped short.
Oh, it was only 2.
Third overtime.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because third overtime
like
they have the 2-point conversion. Like, it's like a hockey shootout.
Yes. Sorry.
2-point conversion shootout. Yeah.
Yes, the 2-point conversion shootout. Like, there you go.
Now got to change the format, but that's another story.
I know. I don't know what they're going to do that works.
I don't like that.
Yeah. I think that's good for another day. We should argue about that and bring something maybe better. But I kind of agree. I think this game could get over too.
On deck next week, SMU.
Yep. I saw that. So, yeah, just sleepy. I can back them. I kind of look at Missouri State. I agree with you here.
All right, next up as we continue along here, we've got next up, there we go, Louisiana, Ragin' Cajuns taking on the Missouri Tigers. We've got Missouri 27.5-point home favorites, 48.5 the total in this game. hell of a game against Kansas last week for Missouri. Look at Bo Pribula. Look, I'm going to give him his flowers here. He's played very well. Can't deny that so far. Now, remember, he got in there in the first game because Sam Horn got injured, and Sam Horn's not going to be back anytime soon. So this is Bo Pribula's job here as a quarterback here for Missouri, and the offenses looked solid. Defense did struggle a bit, against Kansas last week, but they were able to get the late touchdown that put them over the top and gave them that 42-31 win over Kansas. Certainly, there's been nothing wrong with this Mizzou offense so far. Louisiana lost as 10-point favorites to Rice in their first game. They did beat McNeese State 34-10, so a nice bounce back from them in that game. But this is a Louisiana team that had a pretty good quarterback last year, and Ben Wooldridge, who is, of course, now in the NFL. I think he was with the Patriots in training camp. This is now a situation here for Louisiana where they really like bringing in Walker Howard, and he struggled against Rice. And Daniel Beal finished that game, and they started Daniel Beal last week. So that's the issue of Louisiana here, is that I think we'll see about their defense, but a big part of why Louisiana under DeSormo, the coach, has had some good seasons in the past is because they've had pretty good offense and a pretty good quarterback in Wooldridge, and they look like there's a drop-off this year with what they're getting, albeit it's only been a couple of games. Big drop-off what they're getting at the quarterback position here. So not the greatest spot for Missouri. You beat Kansas. You've got obviously a little bit of a rivalry with them in both sports, football and basketball. And then next week you turn around and you're back playing a big SEC game. So it's not exactly a spot I love laying this kind of number with Missouri when they play South Carolina next week. But I don't know if I trust Louisiana enough. I think they got issues on offense right now. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I think they do too. I mean, they ran the ball well at McNeese. I don't know how much you take from that game. I don't think they looked very good. I thought they looked all right. I guess late in the fourth quarter, they were, kind of just pounded the ball at 3 touchdowns. At Missouri, I mean, I think at least the win I thought was pretty gutsy. They were down 21-6 after the first quarter. I was watching that. They had the touchdown, the fumble recovery, and they scored again. Did Daniels. But and they dominated this game. That's why they did so well. I mean, Kansas did not run the ball, and Missouri just ran all over them. Kansas couldn't run anything on them. 28 first downs, Kansas 13. Yeah, that's why I stayed off Kansas last week. I couldn't do it. I think we saw a little bit of Daniels. I think he's all right. I don't think he's great, and I'll stick to that. And I think I'm a little bit pissed from last year. Their horrible losses late in games. So, but they were very good to me the years before that. So I don't want to be a hater. But yeah, I think Missouri wins here. I don't know. I can't lay the points here. This was fast.
Iowa State. This is a weird one. Iowa State on the road going to a Sun Belt team.
Yeah, it's strange.
Yeah, this is a very strange spot. Iowa State 21-point road favorites, 55 the total in this game. For Butch Jones here, this head coach of Arkansas State, it's looking like more of the same with him. I mean, the offense is pretty good. I like Jalen Rayner. He's got some things going for him. He can run. He can move. He's athletic. I think his passing has gotten a little bit better as well the last little bit for them. Although he still does make mistakes. 2 interceptions last week, albeit Arkansas, not an easy opponent, but the defense is still, ass. And it wasn't very good last year for Arkansas State. Yeah, they're still not a good defensive team, and that's the issue here playing Iowa State, who offensively, well, they had a good game against Kansas State, struggled last week against Iowa, but it's always what happens when you play Iowa. It's one of these muck it up games. That's why Connor Mack liked the under in that Cy-Hawk game last week. That's always what you get with them. They didn't even get to 30 combined points. 16-13 Iowa State. They won it with a late field goal. It was just one of those, classic Iowa
to the T. Yeah, to the T. And if you got Iowa, I didn't take Iowa with 3.5.
3-point game for somebody, and I said Iowa plus the 3.5 was worth a look. +4.
And
And I had that.
Yeah.
You had the under.
Beautiful.
I had Iowa plus the points. Yeah.
I almost took Iowa when it was 3.5 because I just thought this game's going to be tight, and bingo, it was.
Yeah, there you go. This is just, I don't want to in this spot take Iowa State. It's just such a weird spot. You're coming off the rivalry game with Iowa. You played Kansas State as well. And now you got bigger Big 12 games coming up after this, where you're going to play Arizona, Cincy, and all your Big 12 games start after this. I just don't know if Arkansas State's going to stop Iowa State. That's the problem, because their defense is so bad. So can Arkansas State get a little something done offensively? Because kind of lean over at 55. There's a low total for Arkansas State. Like, anytime I see an Arkansas State Red Wolves game with a total in the mid-50s, I automatically say I want to bet over. It's just because I think Iowa State will get theirs. Can Arkansas State do enough to help get over 55? I might go that route in this game. C-Mac, what do you think?
Well, this last year was their first game that they ever played each other. So it must be like some new contract they play. I mean, they won at home 52-7.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's one of these home and home deals. You're right that they did.
That they did.
Of teams are doing Wisconsin, Alabama. There's so many examples of
it.
Yeah, 52-7 Iowa State last year. Yep, against Arkansas State in Ames.
I think they get in the 40s, and Arkansas State could do a little bit, and the game could go over. And I think it's a little bit. I just don't know. Even in Iowa State, this is a hangover spot. Like, still, that's how bad this Arkansas State defense is. Like, Arkansas is not that good. I mean, and they scored 56 like nothing. SEMO, they scored 34.
Iowa State. Iowa State wants to run the football a lot, and Arkansas State's given up almost 7 yards per carry. Almost 7 yards per carry, 206 rushing yards per game. Like, that's why Iowa State should get theirs.
Yeah, they should. So even though the spot isn't great, I think it could slip over.
Yeah, I could see similar to 52-7. I think, 56-14 was the score last week for Arkansas over Arkansas State, 70 points. It went over I was on the over in that game. I could see that here, 56-14, 56-21, something like that.
Yeah.
51-17, 50, something like that. And it could go.
Give a couple more. I want to keep naming scores.
Yeah.
49-10.
Yeah.
Right, I'll be right back.
That exactly. Any of those will get the job done. For the over, that is. All right, next up, we've got, as we continue along here, UTEP and Texas. We've got Texas. What are they here? There we go. 41.5-point home favorites, 51 the total in this game. Arch Manning, he finally got it rolling last week, although it was a bit of a sluggish first couple of drives there. But boy, he did get it going finally. Started to look more like the Arch Manning people were expecting, but let's be honest, it was San Jose State at home. We got to see a lot more. We still got to see him against, the best competition on the schedule. This isn't the best competition on the schedule. This is UTEP. And so there's probably a very good chance that Arch Manning in this offense has a good amount of success. They're 0-2 against the number. Say what you will about how the offense finally got rolling for Texas, 38-7 last week. And it ended up with over 470 total yards. And they held San Jose State pretty well in check. They still didn't cover the number. They only won by 31 last week, and they were laying, a very big number there in that game. What was the point spread? It was 37. Now they're laying 41.5. UTEP did not look good at all again, and Malachi Nelson did not look good in that game versus Utah State. They only scored 16 points in that game. It was a very rough showing from the offense. He looked petrified to throw the football, 22 of 34, 178. Couldn't run the football at all versus Utah State. I don't know how UTEP moves the football against this Texas defense. I just don't. I have no idea how they move the football. Malachi Nelson on the road in this spot. I don't see him having a boatload of success. I lean under this total. And again, it stayed under last week with San Jose State and Texas, 38-7, 2 straight unders for Texas. This is an under or maybe a UTEP team total under as well. I could see, what's the team total is 5.5? Oh my gosh, it's 5.5, the UTEP team total. They might only get 3 in this game, honestly. I've not really been all that excited about what I've seen from Malachi Nelson here for UTEP or this offense in general. And Texas's defense is probably their strength. So, yeah, this is a lean to the under and or UTEP team total under for me here in this game. By the way, now they haven't played each other since September 20th, and all these meetings were a long time ago, but 42-13, 64-7, 41-7. It was 59-3 Texas in 2020, the last time these teams played each other. So, yeah, I don't see UTEP scoring a lot of points here. All right, next up, we've got South Florida. What a win for Alex Golesh and the South Florida Bulls last week, taking down Florida as 18-point road underdogs. And now they'll look to be another Dragon Slayer this week against Miami and Carson Beck and Mario Cristobal. We've got Miami 17-point home favorites, 54.5 the total in this game. Now, obviously, having a win like that against, a big-time Power 4 team and having to ramp it back up again the very next week and try to do it again is not easy. It's obviously not easy. But I'm still, even after how well they played against Notre Dame, and they did that first game, Carson Beck looked good. You cannot take anything away from him. That offense looked good. He looked comfortable throwing the football. I was concerned about the receiving core, all the losses there, and they were still able to find other players stepping up in the receiving game against Notre Dame. Like I said, he was efficient, no mistakes, no turnovers. Malachi Toney might be that next great Xavier Restrepo type receiver for this Miami Hurricanes team. What a catch he made in that. One of the best catches all year he made in that Notre Dame game. No question. And they get the big win. But yet they almost let Notre Dame back in it and blew it. Almost at the end. And hung on, obviously, for dear life against Notre Dame. But it still was a good win. They were the better team. Deserved to win that one against Notre Dame, 27-24. Obviously, they pounded a weakling last week, Bethune-Cookman, 45-3. The only question is, you played Boise, you played Florida, back-to-back wins outright as dogs. Do you have it in you for a third straight week to ramp it up, get that emotion and intensity level cranked back up to a level that will allow you to compete here for 4 quarters against Miami? If you can guarantee me that can happen, I'd absolutely take South Florida. I do lean South Florida. I'm not laying 17 yet with Mario Cristobal. I'm not doing that. Not to mention, I still remember last year at home favorites against Virginia Tech. They were laying a big number, and they should have lost the game. They nearly did, and they had to hang on at the end. So I don't trust Miami. I do worry about a hangover. I worry about a letdown. I worry about, ripping it back up again for a second straight week against a big-time opponent for South Florida. They have it in their gas tank to do that. But if they can, and I like what I've seen from their defense so far.
That's what I was just going to bring up. I think that's been...
My goodness.
The best thing.
Couldn't stop anybody in the early part of Golesh's tenure as coach. But their defense, look, they made Boise look stupid, in the first game. Madsen couldn't do anything. They couldn't run the football. And Florida and Lagway and the run game, everything about Florida's offense, it was difficult. They made life very difficult for Florida last week. And, yeah, Beck was great against Notre Dame. Let's see it again. I don't trust Cristobal teams in this price range. I'm still leaning South Florida again, even though, they got to show me that they can, because sometimes, you give it your all. You beat a team like Florida, big upset, big celebration, and then the next week you're flat. You just don't have that same emotional, physical level. You can't bring it back again up to the level you need to. That's my only concern here with taking South Florida. I still lean that way, though. I really do. I'm impressed with what I'm seeing from them, especially the improvement on defense. We know they can move the ball when they're on with Byron Brown, but what we've seen from the defense has been what's been most impressive. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so in those games. But I got to say, if they can't get up for this, I mean, I know it's not easy to do, but, this is Miami. Shit. I don't know. I think they get up for it. Yeah, the defense, I think, Lagway, I think he was awful. He did have a pick. What do you have? 222 in the game. With South Florida, I've been impressed.
Yep.
Yeah.
How about the job they did on Baugh, the great running back for Florida? And 102 rushing yards is all they had for the game as a team, Florida.
He had to grind it out.
Yes.
I think he had one kind of like 16-yard run, but that was about it. So, yeah, here's the thing with Miami. All right, they beat Notre Dame. I don't know how good Notre Dame is, really. I think they have their own issues. They're bringing a new quarterback, not the same defense. But Beck looked good. They made enough plays. I don't trust him. I just don't trust this guy flat out. And maybe he keeps proving it wrong. I just saw him too long at Georgia. The turnovers are going to come. And, yeah, I can't take Mario Cristobal at all. This is South Florida. Again, or nothing.
Now, I know it was 50-15 last year, Miami, over South Florida. They destroyed South Florida last year.
Yes.
I don't know.
They beat them bad the last couple times.
Yeah.
They've
I think
seen
you
him.
almost take that with a grain of salt because this looks like a different South Florida team, especially on the defensive side of the football. And, yes, Miami's got Florida on deck. Great point. You know, Miami's got the Florida Gators after this. Yes, that is true.
If the defense plays that well, they will be in the game. And I think they have Brown that keeps them in the game too.
Yep.
Like as long as he's not hurt or some other idiots in the game, I think they could be in it. I think just awful.
Yep.
Yeah, like just bad interception, blah blah blah.
I think the money coming in on Miami is they look really good against Notre Dame, and people don't trust South Florida to bring it again. They're going to be flat. They can't bring it 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
High quality opponents 2 weeks in a row. We'll see.
Who doesn't love it when Miami starts out good and everyone fucking loves it?
Yeah. Put it this way, we'll see. I probably will bet something on South Florida pregame. I can damn sure guarantee you that if Miami's leading at halftime, I'm taking South Florida second half, 100%. We saw it that Notre Dame covered in the second half. I'll take any coach in this sport in the second half, adjustments-wise, over Cristobal. It's that simple. So keep an eye on that. I think Miami's second half fade this year. They're already 0-1. With that Notre Dame game. All right, next up, we've got Ohio and Ohio State. By the way, that's a home-and-home series with South Florida. I think this is too, or South Florida, Miami. I think this is too, Ohio and Ohio State. We've got Ohio State 32.5-point home favorites, 53.5 the total in this game. Ohio Bobcats 2-0 against the spread to begin the season. They should have beat Rutgers. They were right in that game, start to finish, their first game, and we saw what they did, just controlling the line of scrimmage, just dominating in the trenches, to be quite honest, against West Virginia last week in that 17-10 victory. I'm tempted by the Bobcats here of Ohio, 32.5 points in this game. I mean, when you look at Ohio State, I think the offense is still a bit of a work in progress with Julian Sayin, running the controls at quarterback. Obviously, they grinded their way to that big victory against Texas. Now, their defense has been excellent. There's no doubt. They shut out Grambling 70-0, although Grambling's up against it. They're there to get a paycheck and move on. And then, of course, Texas, Arch Manning at a tough, their defense has been terrific. And so there is some concern there. What are we going to get here from Parker Navarro on the road, the ability to move the football here in this game? But I also look at it as you beat West Virginia and you were minus in the turnovers and you were still able to overcome it and cover that point spread and win it. And if you're Ohio State, you played Grambling. Okay. They were it was such a mismatch. Even if they were, in a flat spot, it didn't matter. They're just so athletically superior to Grambling State. But even if you are motivated here, you've got obviously some bigger games coming up after this. If you're Ohio State, you've got Washington on the road actually you go into a bye week and then you play Washington on the road. So their bye week is coming in after this. So they beat the hell out of Grambling. They beat Texas. You got your bye week on deck. I don't know. Sometimes bye weeks on deck when you're going into that game before the bye week playing great like Ohio State is. Sometimes that's when you're a bit dopey. You're a bit off. You're a bit out of sync. You've got your eye looking forward to the bye week coming up. And this Ohio team has proven to me they're scrappy, they're feisty. They've hung in the trenches better than you would expect with Rutgers. They dominated it against West Virginia, the trench battle at the line of scrimmage. As you can tell, I'm very, very much eyeing Ohio with all these points on Saturday. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, shit. I think so too, but I think Ohio State could shut them down. I don't know if they get more than 10 points.
I know they played. It wasn't Ohio. I kept thinking they played Ohio last year. It was Akron, and it looked like Akron early in the game. Actually, Akron got the first points of the game, and they were only down.
I remember that. Then they
17-3 at halftime, and then of course it just turned into an onslaught in the second half. So maybe this Ohio first half, if you're worried about that happening here.
That seems like maybe they could just catch them slipping, or maybe something crazy, a fumble, and they get a touchdown early. Ohio, though, I mean, this is why I backed them back to last year. This team covers. I don't think anybody wanted them against Rutgers. That line went to 50-16. It's like Ohio sucks. So I just think Ohio State's defense is the here problem. I mean, from those two games I've watched, unless they're asleep here, they win. But I don't know if they cover. I think maybe Ohio can hang around. You have mute?
Yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. Next up, Old Dominion, Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, 7.5-point home favorites, 50.5 the total in this game. Man, Virginia Tech's got issues, man. 0-2. A winnable game against South Carolina that they pissed away. I don't want to talk too much about that because it still frustrates both of us, that game. And then last week, that was as bad coming out of halftime to play in the second half. And that's 2 weeks in a row this team has laid an egg, an absolute dud. Shit the bed in the second half. 2 dreadful second halves in a row for Virginia Tech to begin this season. South Carolina, they had a miserable second half. And then last week against Mr. Pavia and Vanderbilt, they were dominated in the second half. Absolutely.
And they were up by 10.
Yes.
And they got dominated. By the way, they're one of the worst second half football teams.
No adjustments. Outcoached. Brent Pry he's not very good. Let's be honest.
Get rid of him. That's been going on for 2 years. Horrible.
Yeah, he's just not good, this guy. No, it's time to move on, I think. Pretty soon. Like, if they have a...
How about Vandy, though?
Yeah.
Another win. They're going to get that win total there.
Like
Vandy sucks. Vandy sucks. Fade, fade, fade. As long as Pavia is healthy, they'll win 7 games. Even though with a tough schedule. They have a tough schedule, too. I don't want to maybe 6 games. Yeah. Maybe 6 games.
No, there's problems with Vanderbilt. Their defense got absolutely destroyed in the second half. Vanderbilt did whatever they want. Pavia throwing it, but especially the run game got really going. 262 on the ground for Vanderbilt last week. They ran the football. Pavia not only throwing it, but running it a little bit himself. He had 61 rushing yards. I mean, to go from being up 20-10 at halftime and then getting outscored 34-0 in the second half at home on a Saturday night in Blacksburg, 44-20. You couldn't hear a fucking pin drop in that stadium in the second half. That's how bad they were getting, just absolutely eviscerated by Vanderbilt in the second half. It was a demolition in the second half at night. Give me Old Dominion. Not just the points. Give me Old Dominion outright. I think they can absolutely win this game in outright fashion. You know I'm a big fan of Colton Joseph, the quarterback. Okay, they didn't have their best game against Indiana, but they hung in there against Indiana the first game of the year. It wasn't until later in the game Indiana finally started to gain some separation. I thought all things considered, Old Dominion gave a decent account of themselves against Curt Cignetti's team that first game of the season. I like their offense. 54 points now it's NC Central, but still 54-6. They did what they should have. They're 2-0 against the spread. Like I said, at Indiana, first game of the year, 27-14, respectable performance. They only lost by 13. Virginia Tech is horrific. They're poorly coached. They're ill-prepared. They're awful after halftime. They make terrible. There's no adjustments, none, zero. It's like they forget how to play football at halftime, and that falls squarely on the head coach, Brent Pry. This is a very live dog here. And Old Dominion, by the way, this is in-state game too. They'll be fired up for this. I bought in Old Dominion last year. I get it. And Virginia Tech beat the brakes off them, 37-17. But to me, this is a different year. I think Virginia Tech's just in a bad way. Kyron Drone stinks too. I've seen enough of him. I said that after the South Carolina game. Terrible. At least he didn't make any interceptions this time, but still 17 for 29, only 134 passing yards. I've seen enough of him. He can't play. He's not a big-time college quarterback. I've seen enough to figure that one out. So give me Old EU, the Monarchs, plus the points. I think they can threaten to win this game outright. I really do. See, Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. I just, this has been a tough place for them to go in there over the years. They have done pretty good at home against Virginia Tech. But how could I back Virginia Tech? I just can't. I think they might have the better defense. In that first game, Joseph had the big runs for the scores early and then one late against Indiana, but he had 3 picks. He can't do that. He cannot. If he doesn't turn the ball over, I think they're in it. Like if he's bad, but on the other side is Drones.
And the quarterback run of Pavia gave Virginia Tech fits, and Joseph's got some of that in his game too.
He's got it. Oh yeah, he definitely has it for sure. It's just Virginia Tech at home, but I wouldn't lay more than the touchdown with Virginia Tech. So I agree with you. I don't know if I bet this, but yeah.
The guy that I've had on my football show in the past, Football Frenzy show, Craig Peterson. He's special teams coach for Old Dominion now, Craig Peterson. So shout out to him. All right, next up, we've got Arkansas and Ole Miss. Ole Miss, 9.5-point home favorites, 62.5 the total in this game. This is an over for me here. I mean, I think both offenses can do some damage. Taylon Green for Arkansas. Ole Miss, I'll tell you what, Ole Miss, I don't like Kentucky's offense. I don't like Calzada very much. That Ole Miss defense gave up plays and points to that lackluster offense last week. I was not impressed by the Ole Miss defense by any stretch of the imagination at times against Kentucky last week in that game. So, like I said, I need to see more from this Lane Kiffin defense. Austin Simmons, he made a mistake or two early in the game, but still, I think as the game went on, you see why they like him. He's got a lot of talent. There's no question. And as that game went on, we saw the Ole Miss offense really get it revved up, 30 points against Kentucky. Simmons with the 235 passing yards. Again, he's got to negate the mistakes. He had 2 interceptions, but like I said, they ran the football very well with Kawan Lacey. They got receivers. The O-lines played solid. Still racked up almost over 450 yards of offense against Kentucky on the road last week. They should be able to move the ball. I still don't think all that highly of Arkansas's defense, and they really haven't played anyone of high quality yet, Arkansas, either way. They played Alabama A&M and Arkansas State. That's not saying a whole lot. So I think Arkansas moves the ball. I think Ole Miss moves the football. I like over here, 62.5. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, when I looked at this total, I wish it was a little lower, of course, nitpicking here, but I just think it's a little bit too high.
You will get pace too, both ways. I think that's part of it too. Both teams.
These games too, between them, always seem to be high scoring. I don't know why. Ole Miss Arkansas games, there's been some crazy ones over the last few years. I think this is a bounce back spot for Ole Miss. There's no way.
Well, they did win the game, but it sounded like they lost the game when you hear Lane Kiffin after the game. And don't tell me coaches.
They're lucky to win. They're lucky to win the game.
Sorry to all the gamblers out there with that.
He knows the spread. He's a fucking dickwad. His name's Lane. That's why I faded him. Anyways, he nailed the field goal. Kentucky covered.
He's apologizing to all the people that bet Ole Miss last week. Oh man, that's just.
Anyways, he's gonna be apologizing again. Yeah. I don't love this Arkansas team and Green that much, and they haven't played anybody, But I take the 9 points with them, 9.5 over Ole Miss. I just think Simmons. He made the mistakes. He did look better. He's athletic, but I think he makes more mistakes. I just think this is a 1-score game. So Razorbacks.
All right, Arkansas for C-Mac leaning in that direction. All right, we got another SEC matchup here. Next up, Vanderbilt and South Carolina. South Carolina, 5.5-point home favorites, 47 the total in this game. This definitely could be an under. When you start to look at it, Vanderbilt. And by the way, and I love me. You already know which side I'm leaning with here. I love me some Vanderbilt as a dog. They've been absolutely phenomenal since the beginning of last year under Diego Pavia and Clark Lee, the head coach, as an underdog. And again, last week against Virginia Tech, more of the same. This is one of these very rare early, week 3, where we have a common opponent for both of these teams. Both of these teams have played Virginia Tech. South Carolina played Virginia Tech 2 weeks ago, and Vanderbilt played Virginia Tech last week. Vanderbilt was way more impressive against Virginia Tech than South Carolina was. It's not even a debate. It's not even an argument. Vanderbilt just blew the doors off Virginia Tech on the road in the second half. And if not for a terrible offensive play and fuck-ups galore, South Carolina was life and death to eventually, finally pull away from Virginia Tech 2 weeks ago in a neutral field game, that game in Atlanta at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium there. So Vanderbilt looked way more impressive against Virginia Tech than South Carolina did. And then I watched a good chunk of that. There's not as many games at that time of the night, but I saw a part of that South Carolina game. And I watched the offense and Lenora Sellers. What the hell happened in the first half of that game? It took them a while to get going. Keep in mind, they had a punt return touchdown and a blocked punt return touchdown. Say this, it's a Beamer as a head coach. So that's the one thing South Carolina's had that's been great this year. It's their special teams. Their special teams have been absolutely tremendous this season. They had a kick return. Not surprising because the old man was special teams guru, Frank Beamer. But they had a punt return touchdown. They had a block punt return touchdown against South Carolina State. That was the 14 of their 17 points. They had 3 offensive points in the first half against South Carolina State last week. And Lenora Sellers was terrible in the first half. At home against South Carolina State. I couldn't believe it. It was awful. Like the offense was bad, really bad in the first half. It was better in the second half, but it's not like they lit it up. And then they got another defensive touchdown in the second half. They had 3 non-offensive touchdowns with the 38 points they scored. They had 3 non-offensive touchdowns, which means only 17 of those points came from the offense, CMAC. 17 of those 38 points last week for South Carolina came from the offense. That's it. Vanderbilt won't be pushed around. Vanderbilt can hold its own in the trenches. That's 2 games in a row now where Lenora Sellers in the offense has not looked great. Even in the Virginia Tech game, they kept punting and punting and punting. And if not for Virginia Tech's offense being so pathetic, they could have lost that game with the offense struggling like it did. So I like Vandy here again this week, getting points. I think it's a game that they're very much in it from start to finish. CMAC, what do you think?
Yeah, I think they remember last year's loss, too. They lost at home, I believe.
28-7, yep. Actually,
I just remember
times
Sanders.
they did cover as a dog last year was against South Carolina.
Sanders was very good in that game. Let me double check. He's not there. 15 for 126.
Good
2
point.
touchdowns. He had a couple big runs.
Raheem Sanders, he's gone now.
He had a couple big runs in that game. I just, it seems like South Carolina here at home, they usually take care of Vandy. I can't go against Pavia. How can I not? Come on. I can't. I can't do it.
They had 17 points offensively at home against South Carolina State. Isn't that a freaking MEAC school or SWAC school? It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They had nothing in that first quarter too.
Yeah.
I was like, man, what's going on here? Vandy did a lot. You talked about that second half, how bad with Virginia Tech. I go back to this game. This is the under. I don't think we're going to have maybe a ton of points. What kind of the line of scrimmage takes care of it. South Carolina, obviously, their offensive line last year got it done. But, yeah. And Pavia played in that game, correct? Last year?
Oh, yeah, he did.
November?
He did struggle.
Yeah.
He did struggle. Yep.
Yeah, because he had the rushing touchdown, I remember. Yeah, he did struggle a little bit. Yeah, I have under here. Under for me.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see this being low scoring as well with these 2 teams. The under, I think, does make sense. All right, Eastern Kentucky. Not Eastern Kentucky. What am I thinking? Eastern Michigan taking on Kentucky. We've got Kentucky 24.5-point home favorites, 45.5 the total. I love Chris Creighton, and still, even after the loss to Texas State in the first game, even after that loss, CMAC, he's still 30-12 against the spread. Last 42 tries as a road underdog. 30-12. That being said, that Texas State game, they could not stop Texas State at all. And Texas State put up a big number against UTSA last week. So they could have a really good offense this year, Texas State. But then last week, Long Island at home.
Come on.
22.5-point favorites, losing outright. 28-13 in that game, giving up 400. They have a bad defense, man. 479 yards to Long Island in that game. Stanzani, the quarterback, lit them up. They ran the football with a good amount of success. Eastern Michigan's offense, I can't blame Noah Kim. He played all right. They were able to do enough offensively. I'd like to see them do a little bit better than a little over 300 yards. But like I said, big-time concerns here right now with EMU. I love Creighton always gets the most out of every team he coaches. He just might not have a lot to work with this year. This could be a really bad. Just my early takeaways from Eastern Michigan from seeing them is that they just might have a really bad football team this year. And I don't know if Chris Creighton's going to be able to overcome it this season. Keep an eye on the status of Zach Calzada for Kentucky. Not practicing, injured shoulder, coming out of that Ole Miss game. So if he doesn't play, there could be a change at quarterback here for Kentucky in this game. Not that it's a big downgrade because I'm not a big fan of Calzada, but still, you might be going to Cutter Boley, and Cutter Boley has only got 53 pass attempts in his career with Kentucky, 4 interceptions, 2 touchdowns. Not exactly a ratio you want either. So the Kentucky offense is the problem. They don't have a great offense. I don't think they have a great quarterback. But Eastern Michigan can't stop a nosebleed. Their defense has been so bad. So something's got to give here. Kentucky's suspect offense or Eastern Michigan's suspect defense. I'm tempted still to take EMU. You're talking 24.5. Kentucky's been a bad long-term, bigger favorite for Mark Stoops. The offense has issues. It's you got this game following the Ole Miss game, and then you go back into SEC play next week. Against who do they play? At South Carolina. Actually, at the bye week after this game, then you play South Carolina. It's not a Kentucky spot, and I don't trust their offense one bit. So even though it's scary because this Eastern Michigan team might be really bad this year, we're still talking about backing a coach that's 30-12 against the spread as a road dog the last 42. For me, I'm still leaning Eastern Michigan plus 24.5. C-Mac, what do you think?
God, man, this might be the ugliest one. Like, hold your nose here. Kentucky could just hand it off and win this game.
That's true. I know that run defense in particular. Whew.
Maybe could cover. I don't know. They're just not that type of team. Yeah.
Like they're giving up 311 rushing yards per game. They're giving up 7.4 yards per. That's so bad. They could just literally hand it off and have success. That's the biggest concern here if you're back in EMU.
Yeah, this is tough. I thought, Kentucky was the play last week as dogs at home. They can't be backed at this number. I don't give a shit. Like it's Eastern Michigan or nothing. I know that's crazy. Yep. That might sound like a freak, but there you go.
Florida LSU. This is your Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit special. ABC Saturday night primetime. 49.5 the total. LSU in Baton Rouge, 9.5-point home favorites in this game. Certainly smells, feels, looks like a huge buy low spot here on Florida. Coming off the loss, obviously, against South Florida last week. Although their offense, man, shut down by a defense that, look, if South Florida is shutting you down like that, what could this LSU defense do? Because the LSU defense was, to say they were impressive against Clemson in that first game would be an understatement. And they do look like finally they've got a better defense this year. Now, was it the Louisiana Tech game last week, 23-7? Was it a flat spot? What was it? Because, I mean, they definitely went through the motions, you could tell. But the defense still played well. Only gave up the one touchdown late in the game. Excellent defense. Just it seemed like they were a little sleepy, LSU, which is why I thought Louisiana Tech plus, 37 was a good bet in that game.
Cash.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. They're just a little sleepy, LSU, going into that game. I'm not there with laying 10 yet with Brian Kelly. He might have his best team here at LSU this year. I don't think there's much denying that.
Congrats.
But no, I'm not laying 9.5 here against Florida. And Nussmeier looks like, he's going to have a good year. They've obviously got Barry and Brown, good receiver. Aaron Anderson at defense finally looks like he's got a better defense this year. And with Florida unable to move the football, against South Florida. That's a real concern, trusting their offense to have a great deal more success here on the road against, like I said, an LSU defense that's looked very good, very dominant so far this year. But I'm still leaning Florida. I'm not ready to get there at 9.5 with LSU in this spot. And it is worth noting, Florida beat them last year, 27-16 when these teams met. It was a pretty even football game, even though Florida got the victory. So Florida played them pretty even, pretty tough last year. It's just LSU to win's one thing, but it's still considered a big game, and remember, LSU was down at halftime against Clemson, and yes, they won that game, but they only won that game by 7. You got to win this game by margin. While I think LSU, the ceiling has risen for them, and I've liked what I've seen so far. Yeah, that's what the gut tells me Gators. The brain tells me LSU could be really, really good this year. And maybe Florida, that's a sign they got exposed a little bit with that loss to South Florida, especially Lagway. But very, very intriguing game. No denying that, but I'm still leaning Florida here in this one. C-Mac, what do you think? Saturday night ABC, Florida, LSU.
I think you back LSU if you really think this defense is for real. But I don't trust it. So I don't. I don't trust the coach. I don't trust. The defense looked very good again. I know La Tech scored. It was just the sleepy game, though, between the two, like we talked about. They scored in the fourth quarter. The cover was pretty easy there. So, man, I think Lagway could play better. It's just not an easy spot for Florida. I think they could keep this maybe a one-score game. This is one I want to look at a little bit more. So just to lean on Florida here in 9.5. And we got a low total with LSU with his defense now all of a sudden. And the Florida game basically was, 18-16 final.
Well, that's the thing. That's a good point. How good's Clemson? We all thought, what a huge win.
Well, there's another thing there.
Clemson looked like a bag of ass in the first half last week against Troy at home. Booed in their own stadium. So how good is Clemson? And that's the team that we're all saying that LSU, look out LSU now. Look what they did to Clemson. Well, Clemson turns around and looks like a bag of shit for 30 minutes against Troy at home last week.
Yeah, it's so early. Some of these, it's just like, yeah. I think the talent, though, with Florida, with Lagway, that look out. Even though LSU at home here at night, it's a tough place. Not easy.
It can be a tough place.
Death Valley.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not ready yet to trust this Brian Kelly and LSU in this kind of where they got to win by double digits. By the way, they were only 1-1 ATS as SEC home favorites last year. Against Oklahoma, they won, but Vanderbilt they won, but they didn't cover. They only won by 7 against Vanderbilt, and they were laying 10 in that game at home
and
against
guess what?
Vanderbilt. Yeah,
that would get you the win here.
Yeah. That won't get you the win if you're going to lay 9.5, 10 if they only win by 7 here, like they did against Vanderbilt last year. Yeah. So, like I said, it's nice. It's if you believe in buy low, buy when the stock is low, handicapping. You're definitely eyeing Florida here in this game. All right. Next up, we've got Texas A&M against Notre Dame. Notre Dame 7-point home favorites, 49 the total in this game. I think I like Mike Elko in a revenge spot a little bit here. I know it's at South Bend. I think it's the first home game this year too for Notre Dame. And A&M, A&M, I'll say this: they lost they didn't play great. They made mistakes. That was Wegman was still the quarterback. First game of the year last year in College Station against Notre Dame, and Notre Dame went into A&M and beat them the first game of the year. So it's a nice little revenge situation here for Mike Elko and his A&M team. I'm not totally convinced Notre Dame's as good as they were last year. Carr had his flashes of moments of good play against Miami, but there were also moments where he looked like a guy making his first ever start, as a college quarterback. So, like I said, and the defense for Notre Dame, I wasn't impressed. I thought the secondary in particular struggled against Carson Beck in Miami. In that first game, they didn't cover well down the field. That's concerning. Now, they do have a bye. They haven't played since that Miami game. So you got Marcus Freeman with extra time to prepare. Notre Dame did not play last week. A&M did, but A&M had Utah State. Here's the thing, though, with A&M. Their defense gave up points to UTSA and Utah State. Did not look great on the defensive side of the football in either game. And you got to think with the extra time to prepare, Notre Dame and CJ Carl look a little bit better. This actually could go over the total. 49. I mean, there's been some holes in this A&M defense so far that Notre Dame's offense could thrive. The Notre Dame defense, to me, which was great last year, Connor, just from one game, they don't look nearly as good this year. Now, again, it's just one game, but I was not impressed with the Notre Dame defense against Miami. That looked like a unit that's not going to be as good this year, just from what I saw. So I'm leaning A&M +7, but I'm leaning over. And I think I like the total, maybe even a little bit more at 49. I think the week off will give Carr and the offense a chance to reset and be better. And the A&M defense has shown a few holes. And I think A&M with Marcel Reed and the offense has been good for A&M. You know, they've scored points in the 40s in both of their first two games. And Marcel Reed has impressed me so far. He's been good. So we'll see if now on the road against Notre Dame will be a bigger challenge. But like I said, I think it's a close game. I lean A&M. I lean over this total. I think 49 we can see enough to get up and over the number. C-Mac, what do you think here? Texas A&M, Notre Dame.
Real quick, A&M over team down the stretch last year.
Yes.
And, you know, this game was 23-13 opening game last year. So I just think, we get a different style, maybe a little bit, and this total's too low. I think Notre Dame's defense will be a little bit better. I don't know. We will see. I just think the extra time and with Freeman that he has that they could look better. And they're still the quarterback, you know, I think it's just going to take time. So with that, and one thing, Texas A&M, you know, here they're a touchdown or 6.5 spots. Dog. This team is dog shit, ATS. I mean, if you back this team, mostly as a favorite, I mean, they were 4-point dogs at Texas last year. They lost by 10. They were 4.5, another loss. So they haven't been really a dog much. But, man, they've been pretty unbackable. So this is tough. Tough for me. I kind of lean over with you. I think the total might be too light. So, yeah, stay off the side for now.
Yeah, it seems like with Notre Dame, like even last year when they had the really good defense, you know, they shut down Florida State, who sucked, Virginia, who sucked, you know, but the Navy, you know, even Army, they played well, but that's, you know, an offense that you know what's coming. But then they played, you know, teams that could move the ball, good in the offensive talent, trench play. USC, they gave up 35. You know, Ohio State in the championship, they gave up 34. We saw them struggle with Miami. You know, and I think A&M can have some offensive success. Yeah, I like this over. I've talked myself into, I think, over the total. You're right. A&M, by the way, 0-7 ATS their last 7 games going back to last year. So they've had issues.
You know what?
I still lean A&M, though. I do. Revenge spot.
I'd like to double check, too. Even the last 2 years, they've had some wins. They've been bad ATS. Like, they've just been not very good against the number for a few years now. Yep,
that is true. All right, Duke and Tulane. We've got Tulane 3-point home favorites, 53 being the total here in this game. Wow, it was a competitive game early, and then wheels fell off last week for Duke against Illinois. 45-19, Illinois just ran away with it in the end. And, you know, no run game to speak of for Duke. No run game at all. Illinois shut that down. Everything they got in the offensively was Darian Mensah. 334 through the air. Meanwhile, Illinois, Luke Altmaier, I'll give him credit. He had a great game. You know, they didn't run the football great either. It was just one of these duels. And unfortunately, what just absolutely killed Duke in that game, the 1 interception and the 4 lost fumbles. -5 in turnovers. -5 in turnovers for Duke in that game against Illinois. You're not going to.
Good. Yeah. You deserve to lose.
You deserve to lose, 100%. So that was frustrating as someone that took a shot with Duke. Revenge game for Darian Mensah. Transferred from Tulane to Duke. Now he gets to face his old team here in this one. I respect the hell out of John Sumrall and Tulane. I would need this number probably to climb a little bit. You got to believe there's going to be a good environment, good home field environment for Tulane. They don't get a Power 4 team coming into Tulane every day for a Green Wave home game. Now, Tulane did show a little leaky defense last week after shutting down Northwestern. South Alabama did have a good amount of success, but they hung on. They won that game. This is a really fun game. It really is. No one's going to talk about it compared to some of the other games. Saturday night, Tulane home game, Duke. Tulane, we know, is an excellent group of 5 team. We think Duke still could be pretty good. Let's be honest. You can't cripple Duke for that game last week. -5 turnovers, everyone's going to get crushed when you turn it over 5 times like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought they moved the ball fine.
I still think this can be a good team, good season. Manny Diaz, I'm not souring on Diaz because of that. I think this is definitely a Duke team that I think you're buying low on them after last week, and a bit of a misleading score because of all the turnovers. So I do lean to Duke, but gosh, I got so much respect for Tulane, I think, and Summerall as a coach. And obviously, Retzlaff's played very well for them here in the first 2 games at quarterback. Over. Robert Oliver Carlson's lean. Yes, I do lean a little bit over here in this game. Problem is, it's 2 defensive-minded head coaches. That is a concern, and you're not going to get either one playing extremely fast pace-wise, but
True.
That's the only concern with the total. I lean that way, but not a strong opinion. I lean Duke as well, but I'm more interested in watching this game because it's a fascinating matchup. And like I said, for Tulane, this is a big deal. You don't get a Power 4 team coming into your barn very often, your home field. So I know this is a game they'll get up for and want to play well. So I just don't want to step in front of Tulane, even though I'm leaning to the Duke side. C-Mac, what do you think here? Duke, Tulane.
Yeah, I mean, this won't be easy. I think Duke can hang in this game. We're not, you're getting 3 here. That's just, if they take care of the ball, I think they can move it. But so could Tulane. So I kind of agree with the over a tad bit. It's just the offenses they have to be efficient, or the turnovers and short field and all that type shit that happened. Yeah, Altmaier, he can sling it. He's a lot better than he used to be. Watched some tape a couple years ago, but he has looked good. So shout out to Altmaier. But yeah, I have nothing here as of now. Retzlaff's look good. You know, that deep. I think they just got punched in the mouth by South Alabama last week. You know, they had to come back. So, like, if Duke can do that, I think then score early would be big. So I don't know. Are they going to pick themselves off after get just fucking drilled, fumbling every ball in the whole game in the second half? So yeah, I'm off too as of now.
All right, next up, we've got Utah and Wyoming. Utah, 23.5-point road favorites, 48 the total here in this game. Man, as Utah looked awesome on offense, man. Devin Dampier and his offensive coordinator coming over from New Mexico, Jason Beck, and it's looked like everything we thought it could. Explosive, dynamic, borderline unstoppable. He's running it. He's throwing it. He's not making mistakes. I mean, it's just been really, really fun to watch. He did only run it 4 times for 25 yards last week, but I think that was Cal Poly because the opponent was, obviously one they had, were able to dominate. He didn't run it like he did against UCLA, but again, I think that's due to the lack of quality of the opponent. 43 points, 63 points in the first 2 games. Here's the thing with Wyoming. Last year, this defense wasn't the same. Whenever they went up, this is usually Wyoming at home, big dog. This is usually where I like Wyoming plus the points. But boy, oh boy, I ain't stepping in front of Utah. I'm probably not laying it with Utah either. But here's the thing with Wyoming, because this has been their point spread rule, big home underdogs. But the spots they covered as big home underdogs last year, Boise State 17-13, they 22.5-point dog. They only lost by 4. But it's hard to compare what we're seeing explosiveness-wise with that offense to what we're seeing from Utah right now. And then you start to look at some of the games in non-conference play where Wyoming was giving up 34 to BYU, 44 to North Texas. The Wyoming defensive numbers look awesome so far, shutting out Akron, 7 points allowed to Northern Iowa. That's not even comparable, the offenses those 2 teams have compared to Utah and Devin Dampier right now. Meanwhile, the offense for Wyoming, they do have a veteran quarterback in Caden Anderson. Solid. He's been efficient. I said coming into the season, I'm looking to bet on Utah. I'm looking to bet Utah games over the total. And so far, Utah, what are they? 2-0 ATS, 2-0 over the total as well. Both Utah games went over the to me, it's Utah on the over or nothing. But I'm more thinking over than Utah. There's a lot of points. It's a bit of an out there spot. Laramie, Wyoming can always be that spot where it kind of you fall into that little web, if you will, when you play Wyoming on this field. But boy, oh boy, there's such an advantage of their offense, I think, over Wyoming's defense. And if we can get some offense out of Wyoming here, I think we can get over 48. I really do. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, styles clash here in this game. Going to go up and down.
Because Utah's going a lot faster, more explosive, and Wyoming's the typical Wyoming. They're going to want to run the football a lot, slow it right down. Yep.
Wyoming, again, though, covered the number last week. They've been very good. I think it could land right around here. I have to say, I'd take Wyoming. Fuck the hype here with Utah. I think they're good. I wish this was freezing cold, even though it's cold, of course. It just makes it better. I think in Wyoming and Laramie, nobody wants to be there, Nobody wants to be there anyways. Shit. Even if it's what is it, 60 there?
It's supposed to rain, by the way.
It's going to be 60.
15-mile-per-hour
wind.
Rain. Ooh, boy. I'm pump the brakes on this total. Let's wait till later in the week till we get a more accurate forecast closer to kickoff, because those conditions bother me for the over.
If this is over 24.5, I might be on Wyoming here. I hope everyone's on Utah.
It's just look up. I love Utah. I'll be looking to back them a lot. I don't love them in this spot at this number, just because I know what Wyoming's historically done here at home as big dogs. They've been, Boise last year is a perfect example of it. They were 22.5-point dogs. They lost by 4.
Who's not going to love? They just kicked UCLA's ass. It was
Cal Poly,
maybe a little ass, and just beat Cal Poly 63-9.
Yeah,
so it's like
a lot of points.
Best team in the country.
Or split it up first half. Maybe Utah is asleep early and then they turn it on. But this is definitely not a spot I'm interested in Utah. And I love Utah. I love Dampier. I love what I've seen. But I just know long-term Wyoming in this point spread role, home dogs, big home dogs. And sometimes they can lure opponents into their little trap, their little web, as I like to say. We'll see if that happens again here on Saturday.
What is the lure? What do you think? Is it just like a metaphor you're using? I was thinking, like, what are they going to food poisoning or something?
Yeah, it's like just it's like they put a spell on these teams coming into Laramie, and they just they don't play well enough, and they never can pull away and win by margin. We've seen it over and over.
I agree. Whatever it is.
When Texas Tech went to Wyoming a couple years ago, that weird game, and Wyoming, Wyoming beat them, for crying out loud, in Laramie. All right, next up, we only got a few games left. We've got Texas State, Arizona State. 14.5-point favorites, Arizona State, 58.5 the total in this game. Now, this is a rematch of last year, Texas State and Arizona State. So we'll see how this one plays out, but this is the another one of these home-and-home deals that the two programs agreed to. Not pretty by Arizona State last week as they lose to Mississippi State. Credit to Jeff Lebby and the Mississippi State Bulldogs. I said they'd be probably improved this year, but to beat Arizona State, high-quality team, credit to them. Blake Shapen putting together the drive. Their offense looked good. The defense has definitely improved a little bit for Mississippi State. And, it did a decent job Sam Leavitt was borderline the worst half of football I've ever seen him play, quite honestly, in the first half. Terrible. Couldn't get anything going offensively. Now, it was a different second half. Knowing Kenny Dillingham's personality, he probably kicked a couple of garbage cans around at halftime in the locker room to get them going and wake them up. But nevertheless, it worked. Arizona State got right back in it, dominated the second half, and took the lead. But then all of a sudden, one secondary breakdown, and there was the game-winning touchdown from Blake Shapen there to win the game on that drive, 24-20. Great pass to Brennan Thompson. It was a great 58 yards with 30 seconds left, and that did it, and got the win there for Mississippi State. Again, the passing game was good. Leavitt struggled, although he was better in the second half. We'll see if Arizona State can bounce back from that. Texas State's offense looks really good so far. Arizona State beat them 31-28 last year at Texas State. Texas State looking for a little revenge. We'll see if they're able to get it here. But their offense, man, 43 against UTSA, 52 against Eastern Michigan. Brad Jackson has looked good throwing the ball. The run game has been solid. They've got a couple of receivers that have made big plays for them, led by Bo Sparks. I like this over more than anything. Tough as far as the point spread, because Arizona State may not take Texas State lightly after losing. And I know Kenny Dillingham is going to get after them for playing like that. So I don't know if I'd be rushing to take Texas State, but the offense has been damn good. And when you're getting 14.5 points, even if you're down 17 or you're down 21, you could get that backdoor touchdown late. That's always something you have to consider. So it'd probably still be a mild Texas State lean for me, but I like this over. I think it gets there. I think the offense bounces back for Arizona State. I still don't trust Texas State's defense. Eastern Michigan traded points with them for a whole first half in the first game, and then they gave up 36 last week to UTSA. So that Texas State defense is still a little leaky. I like the over here. C-Mac, what do you think?
By the way, too, in that game, 2-0 after the first quarter.
Yeah,
the points finally came. Like, I was thinking, what the fuck is going on? But it got going. And their defense is horrible. But they scored. They won that game. It's huge for Texas State. I think Arizona State plays better at home. I lean over, but it's just a lean for me here. Maybe Arizona State's team total in this game. But I just think Arizona State, we talked about, it's just going to have, every year, it's just a little magical year, I think, for them. Not they're that bad, but I thought it was pretty telling. It went to 6.5, and that line, I think, against Mississippi State. And they were flat, like you talked about last week. So, and I can't lay it here with Arizona State. Texas State, that offense, I know it's Eastern Michigan and UTSA, but they could do a little bit, like you mentioned. Jackson's been pretty good. The Sparks guys had 2 good games. Bubba Sparks. Yeah. Come on. A little deliverance in here, man.
Bubba I've been traveling for some time. With a fishing pole and my bottle of shine. It's a great Bubba. That was his best song.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Bubba Sparks. Let's get it.
That was a good one. Deliverance. Look it up for all you youngins out there. All right, next up, we got Minnesota and Cal. Minnesota 2-point road favorites, 44 the total in this game. Minnesota making that long trip to the West Coast. You always have to keep that in mind. I always want to look back, see how they did on the West Coast last year. And they actually got lucky last year that they only had to make one West Coast trip last year at UCLA. 3.5-point favorites. They won 21-17. So they won and covered their one time they went out west in the Big Ten last year. Everything else, all their other road games were Midwest or in the East. So they're very fortunate. They only had to go out west once last year in Big Ten play. I like that young quarterback for Cal. I know that. I've now watched him play a couple times now. He's looked good. JKS, Jaron Kiawe, Salagapolotele. He's looked very solid for them. Not as good last week. He didn't have a touchdown pass, and he had 1 interception against Texas Southern. But he certainly played well against Oregon State. First game, 34 points, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, looked very poised in the pocket. Minnesota, offense struggled against a pretty solid Buffalo team. They put up 66 points, so it was a much better showing from Drake Lindsey, Darius Taylor, and the Minnesota offense last week. But again, it was Northwestern State. You got to take it with a grain of salt there in that game. I think the value might be slightly on Cal as a home dog here, if you ask me, +2. I like that young quarterback. Minnesota, okay, they pounded the hell out of Northwestern State. Doesn't move the needle for me. Let's not forget that Buffalo, played them pretty tough, and the offense struggled as well when they played Buffalo. I mean, yeah, they lit it up against Northwestern State, but Drake Lindsey and the Minnesota offense did not look all that great on last weekend, or the first game, I should say, against Buffalo. So I'm not sure how good or bad these two teams are yet. All I know is when I've seen that young quarterback now in 2 games for Cal, especially that first game against Oregon State, he looked good enough that I don't want to bet against him. So I'm leaning a bit to Cal here as a slight home underdog. C-Mac, what do you think here? Golden Gophers, Battle of the Goldens, Golden Gophers, Golden Bears.
Goldenoff.
Yeah.
Yeah, this total's low, but I think it's low for a reason. I think this game's lower scoring. I don't trust the QB play for Minnesota, but their defense can keep them in this game. We get a 3 here with Cal. I'll be tempted then. I mean, I'm already tempted now. What am I talking
I might
about?
bet it already, but if it ever got to +3, I'd be definitely taking Cal at +3. Yeah.
This is just not an easy spot. Minnesota to Berkeley. I love Cal as a home dog. Let's not, come on. Talking Wyoming. Nothing gets me going more than the Cal at home dog spot. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, let's not forget too. Last year, Cal with the Cal Golden Bears, they've had some of these spots too. Now they don't have Fernando Mendoza anymore, who's now at Indiana, but in those Mendoza,
that's fine. Good riddance. You know what? Maybe this kid's gonna be better. Nothing against Mendoza. He's decent.
No, he's been solid so far for Indiana. Yeah. But like I said, you're right. They had these spots where Cal at home. It was Auburn a couple of years ago in non-conference play. Yeah, Auburn. They lost 14-10, but they covered. They were right in that game, and they usually
that was a 5-point line.
Yeah,
because I was on it.
Yeah,
right.
That's right. Yep.
I remember these games. When you break the game down,
Miami. That's the one. I knew there was one last year. Yeah, Miami.
Oh, the wild game.
Yeah, the wild.
They blew that. They blew that. They took the gun out and shot himself right in the foot.
I remember that. Yep. This has never been an easy place for the road team going into Berkeley. So, yeah, I definitely have a lean to Cal here, +2 in this one. All right, our final game of this edition of Hitting the Books, Boston College and Stanford. We've got Stanford here, Boston College, 10.5-point road favorites, 44 the total in this game. That's either that was a really disappointing, concerning loss for Michigan State, or it was it was a win for Michigan State, but still concerning performance. I mean, Boston College's offense with Dylan Lonergan, it looked really good last week against Michigan State. We'll see how they fare here in this one against Stanford. I got to admit, Stanford, I initially leaned Stanford pretty heavily against BYU, but I was worried, would that offense even work on the road at night against that Cougars team, and it didn't work. That is for sure. So, like I said, I've got concerns here about what we're going to get from Stanford. That offense just isn't very good. They struggled against Hawaii as well in the first game. I know they lit it up a decent amount, Boston College against Michigan State, and credit to them. And like I said, Dylan Lonergan, even in a losing cause, played very well for Boston College in that 42-40 game, and they scored 66 against Fordham, although a lot of that was late in the game. But I kind of lean under here a little bit, the total at 44. I mean, certainly 44 with Stanford involved. This is a Stanford team that scored 3 points and 20 points in their first 2 games of this. And remember, one of the Stanford points was a defensive touchdown where Alejado, got sack fumble and Stanford recovered it and set him up for a short field. So it's like I said, it's not like this Stanford offense has been very good so far. It struggled. They got shut down completely. 19 rushing yards against BYU. Gulbranson had 2 interceptions. Barely 50% completions. I think at some point Frank Reich's got to look at a quarterback change. He's not your long-term viable quarterback here for Stanford, not by any stretch of the imagination. Now, it is BC making a long, long trip. So I actually lean Boston College. I think this could get ugly, but it's one of these deals where they're all of a sudden going on the road all the way to the West Coast after being on the road in a barn burner against Michigan State. Just a few concerns about whether I trust Boston College or Lonergan enough, quite honestly. Even though he was really good last week, he was really good, 34 for 45, 390 yards. Can they kind of duplicate that here against Stanford in a spot long way away from home? That's going to end up being the question. I'd love to know, as a double-digit road favorite, how, not that he would have been a double-digit road favorite very often, but last year, but they weren't a double-digit road favorite a single time last year, Boston College. That being said, they were a winning point spread team on the road last year during the regular season. So I I can't back Stanford, even at 10.5 as home dogs. It's BC or nothing, but it's probably going to be nothing for me. C-Mac, what do you think? Boston College, Stanford.
Yeah, Boston College. I think the game was back and forth, but I thought their offense outplayed Michigan State for the most part. But they went for 2, didn't get it. Michigan State did, wins the game. But BC did cover, which was good. At least that made me happy in some of these totals we were talking about earlier. Nothing gets you more crazy. I got to be taking like some crazy heart pills here. I might be going down with all these games going like that. But, dude, Stanford has been one of the worst home double-digit dogs the last 3 years. They covered against Louisville. That was alone last year.
Wow.
Louisville, 38-35. If you go back a few years, they just get their ass drilled, even at home, catching all these points. It's just tough for me to back them. And it's not an easy spot for BC. I think they're the better team. I mean, I could see them winning by 10. I need them to win too. So I'm a little salty. Remember, I have their over.
That's right. Need them to get their asses in gear. Will this be the spot? I'm not convinced, but like I said, just for BC, this is definitely under Bill O'Brien, some very rare point spread air. It's not often they've been a double-digit road favorite. Are they ready to handle it is the question. All right, shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button. We appreciate it very much. Great show. It's so much fun. It really helps us out, just talking the games out, getting our opinions formulated early in the week for the upcoming college football card. But we appreciate all you guys joining us. Robert, Oliver, Carlson, Zoe, Oldie, Andrew G, Vitalis. Good to see you in the chat again. Vitalis. It's been a while. That's an
Vitalis, what up?
Fast there. GNL photo. It's been a while. Gorion, Ninkovsky, Robert Carlson, James A. Thank you to everyone for joining us here on this edition of the show. Who else did we have earlier on? We had Nunya. Good to see Nunya in the chat. Everyone else joining us
here.
Up? Yep. Good to see Devin, the dude, Tom Leach. Good turnout as always here for the show. Like I said, great stuff. Let me see here. Way back to the start, who was in the chat. But like I said, we appreciate all you guys joining us. Kongs Clips, of course. There we go. Markel. Thank you to everyone joining us. Yep.
Daniel Hernandez.
Yep.
Love it.
Jeff Matthews. Thank you to everyone. Coin. Thank you to everyone for joining us here on this edition of Hitting the Books. There we go. I think we got mostly everybody. But great show. Anything you want to add, C-Mac, and then we'll wrap it up.
No, I'll slice up these games. But listen, I say this every fucking year on this thing. It's earlier in the year. We might as well say it. I love the comments. We do the show early in the week. If you want to talk about your football team, your college team that you love, go to your local report. Like, we're breaking this game from a betting perspective, okay?
We're going to try to be honest, truthful, and unbiased.
Well, but I mean, if you want to talk about the left tackle and what he's fucking eating and like a little bit of that stuff, these guys get into like, these guys didn't hit on these linebackers are insane. I'm like, I read through the comments. I'm like, we just don't have time for that, my friend, So
with all the games we talk about, we want to hit as many games as possible. We can't break down the battle for the backup right tackle spot. Who
are you screwing?
We just can't do that.
No shit. Yeah. So just do your diligence, and if you want to do that, go to the website. There's plenty of social media. You can look at all
teams,
up.
Too many games.
Comment there.
We're not going to sit here at this stage of the season and talk about how the right guard's playing in depth for Delaware right now.
Correct.
I'm not going to do that.
But they see the clip and they love their team and they just want to go in and write like, you guys fucking didn't mention that the second half the starters got pulled, and it's like, hey man, we're here in the live game. We're trying to touch back maybe on the game before what happened or less. So it's just to throw that out there. I always got to do it because I love the comments. And I love when they say you're dead wrong and you're going to lose because we lose. But I just, like, you suck. It's so funny. And then they lost. So,
it's always good. Good for a chuckle. We appreciate it.
We got a lot of Cincinnati love this week. And they didn't cover, which I called.
There you go. Yeah.
I love you guys.
That's
I just got to give it to it.
No,
keep commenting.
Tell
I suck though.
different.
Dude, that's true. And you could say the pick sucks. You can just be like, yeah, that's cool. Like, you're horrible, but about the team, it's like, buddy, go to the website. We're gambling here.
That's right. And we're trying to hit as many games as possible. So like I said, we just can't go outright, or go nuts over certain teams. That is, or we just can't go in depth on every position group on every team. It's just impossible.
Yeah.
With the amount of time, like it's already been almost a 3-hour show right now as it is. But that being said, we love the comments. Like I said, good, bad, or indifferent. We thank you for the interaction. Good stuff. Yeah, appreciate it very
Nothing's
much.
better. I should have wore red today, my Angel hat, my Mike Trout.
Yeah.
But that's the best. The drunk Mike Trout.
Yep.
It's my all-time favorite. My all-time favorite clip. Comments. Yeah. I love it.
No doubt. All right, that's a wrap. Thank you again. We're on tomorrow. We're back tomorrow for MLB hitting the books, Wednesday as well, and then Friday. So 3 MLB shows coming up this week. So make sure you join us for that. That's a wrap for Connor Mack. I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great week.
Woo Kenny Woo.
Oh, woo Kenny.
Shout out to him.
Yeah, there he is.
Shout out to my guy.
One of our favorites. Yeah. Thanks for joining us as well. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy college football week 3 and good luck with all of your bets. And we will be back tomorrow, Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific with the MLB hitting the books show. And of course, next Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific with the next college football hitting the books show. Until then, class dismissed.
Peace.